Welcome to the first in the series of Australian Random Shows number 1. These are shows from my Australian collection taken at random from the archives.
Dr. Page's surgery, Sister Regan speaking. Oh, yes, Dr. Erickson. Yes, Doctor does know about the appointment with you, but he went out on an urgent call and he's not back yet. Something must have delayed him.
Oh, devil, take the rotten thing.
Car broken down, sir.
Hmm? Oh, hi, Sonny. Where did you spring from?
I move around pretty quietly, you know.
You do?
The kids at school call me Creepy Davis.
Do they now? And, what does your mother call you?
Lenny? Well, that's my real name. I say, you picked a bad spot to have your car break down, sir. Right up here on the top of Cemetery Hill. It's 2 miles to the highway.
Don't I know it. I was hoping to fix it. I'll have to phone for a breakdown van now. Well, it's lucky I'm so close to that old house. It's the only one inside.
Oh, you won't be able to phone from there, sir.
Well, they have the phone on. I can see that.
That's Miss Taggart's house. Never see her in the daytime. She's a witch.
Oh, well, in that case... She's a what?
A witch. You only see her at night.
Don't tell me a big boy like you believes in witches.
Everybody says she's a witch, but she doesn't worry me. The kids reckon I'm mad to come up here alone near the cemetery and the witch's house, but I don't care.
What do you come here for?
I collect colored rocks for geology class at school. Oh, there are some buttes up here.
I see. Well, good luck with your collecting, Lenny. I'm going to see if the witch will let me use her phone.
You're wasting your time, mister. She won't answer the door. She never comes out in daylight.
Oh, she doesn't, eh? Well, I'm afraid she's going to have to come out this time. A great medical mind, they say.
Yes, a brilliant surgeon.
Too young for my liking, much too arrogant.
Yes, just a rebel in a white coat. That's your Dr. Peter Page, a rebel in white.
At last. Where on earth have you been, Peter?
Walking.
Where from, for goodness sake?
Well, a car broke down way out on Cemetery Hill and I had to walk to the highway to get a lift.
Cemetery Hill? What were you doing up there?
Oh, I took a shortcut.
Oh, Peter. Oh, if that isn't the saddest story in ages, you take a shortcut and end up getting home 2 hours late.
I'm tickled to death about it.
Ah, never mind. I'm sure the exercise did you good. Come on, sit down and make you some coffee.
Oh, this is one time I could use even your coffee.
You must be feeling exhausted if that's the case. There. Jug's on. Won't be long.
Oh, the whole thing was so frustrating. Any crises while I was away?
No. Only Dr. Erickson. He was expecting you at the hospital.
Oh, yes, that's right. I have to ring him and square off. And that means I'll have to make time to see him tomorrow. I'll be behind for days. It's a busy week.
Well, if you will go visiting cemeteries in working hours, that's what you must expect.
Visiting cemeteries? I might just as well. That call I went out on wasn't urgent at all, as it happens. And then I had to get stuck on that hill. I thought I was lucky to be near that lonely old house. Well, I mean, there's a phone there.
Oh, I know the house you mean. Don't tell me anyone lives there.
Uh-huh. Well, the silly old duck refused to open the door. Miss Taggart, I think the kid said.
Kid? What kid?
Creepy Davis.
Who?
Oh, I mean Lenny Davis. A funny-looking boy who creeps around on the hill collecting stones. He says the old woman's a witch.
You feeling all right, Peter?
I'm not sure. But the jug's boiling, so make the coffee, and I'll tell you all about Creepy Davis and the witch.
What are you doing, Lenny? Huh? Oh. Hello, Marion. Messing about with those silly old stones again? Don't you ever do anything else? Nobody asked you to hang around. Go back home and play with your dopey dolls or something. Oh, that's a pretty one. Where'd you get it? Up on the hill. Cemetery Hill? Yep. I don't believe it. You're fibbing. I am not so. I got that one up on the hill and that other red one over there too. Do you really go up near the witch's house? Of course I do. I've told you that dozens of times. I wouldn't dare go up there by myself. Well, I would. I go all the time by myself. I bet you'd never go up there at night. What'd be the good of that? Can't look for stones at night. I bet you're scared to go at night. Scared? Who's scared? I'm not scared to go any time. That old witch doesn't worry me. I bet you wouldn't go up there tonight. I bet you threepence you wouldn't. I haven't got threepence, but I'm not scared. You're the one who's scared all the time. You wouldn't go, even if I went with you. I'd go with you in the daytime. Well, you wouldn't go at night. I would, sir, if you went too. Okay. We'll go tonight then, after tea. Tonight? Well, I think I've helped Mum tonight. Ah, you're scared. I knew you were. Girls are all sissies. I am not scared. Of course you are. All right, I'll show you. If you go tonight, I'll go too. Well, there it is. The witch's house. It looks spooky. Come on. We've got to walk right past it and back. You agreed. We don't have to go any further. We've seen the house. You agreed to walk past it. You're scared. I'm not, only... Only what? All the trees. They look sort of different at night. So they've got big long arms. And the cemetery. Tombstones look so white. Oh, cut it out, will you? You'll be getting me as bad as you are. Come on. Let's walk past the house. In a minute. What do you want to stand here for? Lenny. What? They say the witch comes out at night and flies around on a broomstick. I say, I'd like to see her do that. Don't talk like that, Lenny. You... What's up? Look under that tree. There's someone there. Huh?
What's the matter, child?
It's her. It's the witch.
Didn't you see me coming through the trees, eh? What are you two children doing up here at this time of night?
Well, we were going for a walk.
I know you. You're the boy who collects stones up here. I've seen you sometimes, through the Venetian blinds. On a dull day, of course. I love to look outside, but it must be a nice, full, cloudy day, you know.
The hill looks a bit spooky on a dull day.
I don't know you, little girl. Oh, my. What a pretty little thing you are, aren't you? Your hair shines like silver in the moonlight.
No, keep away from me.
You're not afraid of a poor old woman, are you, child? I only wanted to feel your lovely hair, to see if it's as soft and beautiful as mine used to be. Here,
No,
let me...
don't touch me. Run, Lenny, quick, before she catches us. Marion, wait. Hey, wait for me.
Ah, there you are, Stuck. What for you in your office?
Oh, I've just been checking on a casualty that came in last night. Young girl with a broken leg.
Oh?
Yes, I believe you've attended the family. Wills. Child of 9, name's Marion.
Marion Wills? Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Her mother brought it to me for something or other a few months back.
Yes, well, this was an emergency, you know. They rang for an ambulance, and so we have her here. Of course, if they'd like you to take over.
I'm sure there's no need for that.
Yeah, just as you like. You'll be all right with us, of course. Come in for coffee.
Well, I've had it earlier, but I'll come in. How did Marion break her leg?
Well, you'll probably think it's a funny story, but the report says she fell over a tombstone.
A what?
Yes, tombstone in the cemetery. She was running through there to get away from a witch, she says.
A witch? Oh, no, not that again.
Again?
There's an old woman who lives in a lonely house on Cemetery Hill. The children think she's a witch.
That's right, I've heard about that. I don't blame the children entirely. There are one or two adults with very odd ideas about that woman.
Oh, you're kidding.
Am I, by George? You ask some of the folk out that way and see what they say.
In this day and age, you'd hardly think it possible anyone could believe in witches, even kids.
Well, witch or not, the Wills family are pretty annoyed about the old woman frightening their little girl. And Wills is a great one for making a big noise about things. I shouldn't be surprised if he stirs up some trouble.
Well, all right, Mr. Wills. I'll tell Doctor as soon as he comes in, and he can discuss it with you. Very well. Goodbye. Well, that you wouldn't read about. Oh, you just missed a phone call, Peter.
Oh, something important?
Well, it depends on how you look at it.
Oh, what are you talking about?
Mr. Alec Wills called. He wants you to ring him back when you have time.
Wills. That's Marion Wills' father, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, that's right. You remember her then?
Vaguely. I was talking to Stark about her. She's at the hospital with a broken leg.
Then you know half the story. How she was running away from this old woman on Cemetery Hill and fell and hurt herself.
So what does Wills want with me?
He's getting up a petition. And seeing you've been their family doctor in the past, he thought you might like to sign it.
A petition? What for?
He says that old woman, what's her name, Miss Taggart, he says she's a menace to the children and she ought to move away.
Well, he's entitled to have his point of view, I suppose. But that is her house up on the hill and she has a right to live in it. If they're thinking of petitioning her...
They're not thinking of her. The petition's for the Shire Council.
What?
He says he knows Miss Taggart won't move out of that old house just because they ask her. And the house is practically falling down, so he's getting this petition to get the council to condemn the building. He wants the old house wrecked, razed to the ground.
Well, yes, I've heard about it, Page, but I haven't been approached to sign the petition.
Well, I have.
Oh, did you sign?
Stark, they're asking me to throw an old woman out of a home. A woman I don't even know. And their reason is that some silly child ran away from her and broke a leg. I ask you, would you sign the petition if you were asked?
No.
Then what the...
I was just interested in your attitude. Page, let's make a note of the date. We agree on something. It's worth noting, I think.
You better not harp on it. You might make me wonder if I'm doing the right thing after all.
Yes, I see what you mean.
Seriously, what about this Miss Taggart?
You know as much as I do. Well, there's a funny thing.
The name rang a bell?
That's right. You too.
You're probably thinking of the same Taggart as I am. Elwood Taggart, the doctor who did such good work on tropical skin diseases about 30 years ago.
Yes, of course. That must be where I heard it. I suppose this woman could be any relation.
But Taggart died more than 20 years ago. He wasn't married. I never heard of any family. Anyway, no sense in worrying about that. It doesn't help us.
No, I suppose not.
Oh, just for the record, Stark, what's Miss Taggart's first name?
Maud. Maud Brinkley Taggart.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I saw it on the petition when they showed it to me. They must have got it from the council files.
Do they have many names on the petition?
Yes, fair few. Naturally, they have a lot of support of the folk out Cemetery Hill way, people with children mostly.
You think they might be able to persuade the council to condemn the house?
You've seen the place. They tell me it's even worse than when I last saw it a couple of years ago. Practically falling down.
Oh, that's true. And no doubt the jolly good fellows on the council will be able to kid themselves it's in the public interest to pull the house down.
That's perhaps not so bad in itself. The question is, what happens to Miss Taggart?
Yes, that bears thinking about, doesn't it?
Well, I feel sorry for the poor old thing, even if she is a bit weird.
I'm not sure she's even weird. After all, just because she doesn't like visitors, which I know to my cost.
Oh, Peter, of course she's weird. Do you know the tradesmen all have instructions to leave everything outside? She never answers the door.
What's so weird about that?
And people who've seen her at night say she looks just like a witch out of a fairy tale, all rugged up in an old-fashioned ankle-length dress with a shawl pulled round her head and face and a hat on top of that.
What worries me is what they're doing to that woman, even if she did annoy me by not letting me use the phone. I hate it when the whole community gangs up on someone.
Well, you could always start a counter-petition.
It's an odd thing, you know, Jan. I went to that house to use the phone. Well, I wondered at the time that such a broken-down old joint should have the phone on, but well, the wires were there anyway.
Oh, she has the phone all right, always making long-distance calls.
How the devil do you know that?
Well, you know me, Peter. I never gossip, but I keep my ears open.
We'll pass up the argument about your gossiping. Just what did your big ears hear about Miss Taggart's phone calls?
The story is that her phone is on a party line. Other people further down the hill can listen in if they want to, you know.
And, of course, those good folk wouldn't dream of listening.
Of course they listen. That's what party lines are for. To brighten the lives of people with nothing better to do.
What about the long-distance calls?
She rings the Markway Chemical Company. Always sending for supplies of various chemicals, apparently.
Chemicals?
Now, tell me she isn't a sorceress. She's probably trying to turn iron into gold or something. Isn't that what the old sorcerers always tried to do?
Taggart. Markway Chemical.
What about it?
Jan, put in a call to Johnson at Markway, will you? I have a hunch and I feel like playing it.
Okay. But from past experiences with your hunches, it won't surprise me if it means trouble.
Miss Taggart, it's Dr. Page. I want to talk to you.
I don't want a doctor. Go away, please.
This is important. It's for your own good.
I'm quite all right. Please go away and stop bothering me.
You must open the door, Miss Taggart. People are worried about you.
Nobody need worry about me. There's nothing wrong. If you wish to help me, just go away and leave me alone.
I'm not going till you open the door. Miss Taggart?
You'll never get her to open the door, mister.
What? Oh.
She's a witch. Witches don't like men. But they don't mind boys and girls.
What are you doing here, Lenny? Still collecting rocks?
Not today. I've been after toads.
Toads? What the?
Well, sort of toads. Frogs, really. See? Aren't they beauties?
A whole box full of frogs. What are you going to do with them?
I'm going to give them to the witch.
Now, Lenny, don't tell me Miss Taggart asked you to get those frogs for her.
Oh, no, she didn't ask me. But I know witches like toads. They boil them up and make spells with them.
Spells? You sure you don't mean smells?
Frogs aren't exactly toads, of course, but they're something like them. I thought maybe the witch would like to have these. Besides, I want to tell her about the men.
Men? What men?
I heard Mr. Wills and some men talking about coming up here, bashing her door down and making her come out into the sunlight.
What? When?
Well, they were talking down...
No, not that. When did they say they'd come up?
At the weekend, they said. They said the old woman ought to be made to come out into the daylight and show her face to the children so they wouldn't be frightened of her.
Oh, did they? And what about you? You don't seem to be frightened of Miss Taggart.
No, I'm not. I like her. If that sissy Marion Wills hadn't got scared the other night, there wouldn't be all this trouble.
You're right. Listen, Lenny, I want to help Miss Taggart too, but she won't open the door for me. Do you think she will for you?
She might. To get the frogs, see?
Well, suppose you go ahead and try. Oh, and I'd like you to take a note to her for me.
A note?
That's right.
Okay.
Go away.
It's me, Miss Taggart. Lenny Davis. I brought some frogs for you.
What's that?
Frogs, like toads, you know. You can make spells with them.
Go away, boy. I don't want any frogs.
Well, you ought to if you're a witch.
What's that?
Well, you're a witch. Everyone says so. And the men are coming up to drag you out of your house. And they say they'll burn it down and all sorts of things.
Oh, no. Just a minute, boy.
Golly, she's really going to open the door.
Now then, boy. The door's unlocked. You can come in.
Okay.
Come in, boy. And close the door. Quickly now. I don't want you to let the light in.
Yes, Miss Taggart.
Come here.
It's so dark I can't see.
I'm used to the dark. It's all right, don't be afraid. Walk straight ahead. That's right. There's nothing in your way. Keep walking. Now, stop. Can you see me now?
Kind of. You're sitting in that big chair.
Yes. Now, what's all this nonsense about my being a witch?
That's what everyone says. That's why I brought you the frogs. See in this box.
I'm sure they're very nice frogs, but I'm afraid I have no use for them.
They're nice and fat. I got them from that marshy patch where the spring is.
Oh, really? Well, I'm afraid you'll have to take them back. I can't keep them here.
Oh,
But it was nice of you to go to all that trouble. Thank you very much.
that's okay.
What's that you have in your hand?
Oh, the box with the...
No, that piece of paper.
Oh, this. Oh, it's a note from that man outside. I think he's a doctor.
A note? For me?
Yes.
Oh, then give it to me.
Okay.
Now, where did I put my torch? Ah, here. Oh, what's the matter?
You look awfully spooky with the torch on.
Do I? Yes, perhaps I do. I'm not young anymore. But there was a time when I was a happy little girl, like that friend of yours. Do you realize that?
I suppose you must have been a little girl once.
Of course I was. Pretty, too. What's your name, boy?
Creepy. I mean, Lenny.
Well, Lenny, just let me read this note, Now then. Dear Miss Taggart, while not wishing to invade your privacy, I feel it is important that you let me talk to you in view of certain unpleasant gossip that is going round. It has occurred to me that you may be suffering from porphyria. Whether or not I'm right, I feel it will be in your best interest to discuss your situation with me. Yours sincerely, Peter Page. Written on doctor's notepaper. Dr. Page. Yes, I've heard the name. And obviously a very clever young man.
Miss Taggart,
Yes, Lenny?
what does that mean? He said you're suffering. Does that mean you have pains, doesn't it?
No, Lenny, I have no pains. And as long as I stay out of the daylight, I'm quite all right. But just as the sun and bright daylight are good for you, they're deadly for me. If I were foolish enough to go outside now, even for a minute, I could die.
Gosh.
Now, suppose you run along outside and bring Dr. Page in here to me. Will you do that?
Porphyria? Peter, what on earth?
Oh, it's a disease, Jan, that's pretty rare, fortunately. We know little about the cause of it, and only recently has any solid research on it been done.
How does it affect people?
Well, victims have skins that are acutely sensitive to sunlight, even the pale sunlight of a cloudy day.
You mean like redheads?
Very much worse, Jan. The porphyria victim can develop intense skin inflammation, abdominal pains, and sometimes severe mental disturbances from just a few seconds in the sun.
And as long as they keep out of the daylight, they're all right?
That's all there is to it.
That poor old Miss Taggart. Thank heaven you were able to stop them throwing her out of her house. Why, if some fools had gone up there and broken into the place...
She might have died if they'd dragged her into the light. Anyway, we've scotched all that nonsense, and there are some pretty red faces in town, I imagine.
How did you guess Miss Taggart was suffering from that disease?
Well, her reported dislike of daylight started me thinking. Actually, it was just a hunch. But it was supported by what Johnson at Markwell Chemical told me.
About her sending for all those unusual chemical supplies?
Plus the information that she's a qualified biochemist.
Really?
Yeah, the stuff she was sending for seemed the kind of thing she might be using if she was researching porphyria.
And she really is Elwood Taggart's sister?
That's right. He was doing work on her complaint when he died. She decided to retire to some secluded spot and carry on the research, hoping to cure herself and others.
Well, at least they'll leave her to do her research in peace now. Do you think she has any hope of curing herself?
I don't know. But at least she's not sitting around feeling sorry for herself. She's trying to help. And sometimes that's just as important as succeeding. She knows that, and she's happy.
Good morning. Dr. Page's surgery.
Rebel in White is an Artranza production, written by Creswick Jenkinson and directed by Jim Bradley.
Adventure into fear. Welcome to Adventure into Fear. This is your host, Tony Roberts, to take you on a personally conducted tour into the world of the strange, the mysterious, the uncanny, and the unknown. Remember, none of these things you'll hear about could possibly happen to you. Or could they? Now to our story. I hope it will thrill you a little and chill you a little. So settle back, get a good grip on your nerves, and be comfortable, if you can, as you hear the story I call The Big Brain. My story begins in one of the manufacturing plants of the Worldwide Business Machines Corporation. In a wing of the plant is housed the huge laboratories of the company, where newly designed and experimental calculating machines are built and tested. It is evening, and the vast laboratory with its long rows of intricate-looking machines is deserted, except for a young university professor, Lester DeWitt. Tall, lanky, and in his early 30s, DeWitt stands before a massive machine that dwarfs all others in the laboratory. Swiftly, efficiently, he presses tabulating keys on the control board, oblivious of all else.
3.521 to the 8th digit, 74.3 to the 3rd digit, 74.56 to the 4th digit, 9.3 to the 5th digit, 174.325, the 6th digit.
Hey, is that you, Professor DeWitt?
Yeah, I'm at the Big Brain. 6.527 to the 4th digit.
Got your visitor, Professor.
A visitor? Julia.
Well, I'm glad to see that you at least remember my name.
Of course, Professor, I'm not supposed to let anyone in here but engineers and university people like yourself, but figured seeing you and her is engaged.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
That's all right. Enjoy seeing young people get together.
Julia, I'm terribly sorry. I forgot completely. Were you waiting long?
Only half an hour. But then I realized I'd been stood up.
Honestly, Julia, I had no idea it was so late. I decided to run a test at 5:30 and be finished by 6:30 at the latest, but...
If you could only see your face. You look like a small boy who's been caught raiding the pantry.
I'm danged if he doesn't.
Yeah, then you aren't angry with me.
No, I'm not angry. I'll just have to accept you for what you are, an absent-minded professor. Well, so this is my rival. I've never seen such a huge machine.
Yeah, it weighs over 50 tons.
50 tons?
Yeah, that's right. The staff at the plant calls this machine the Big Brain.
It's the only one of its kind in the world, Julia.
Lester, those thousands of keys and levers. Do you know what each one of them is for?
Well, yes, of course.
Oh, you're amazing. You can never remember the date, and yet you know what each of these keys are for.
Oh, it's my job. Julia, have you ever seen anything as beautiful as this machine?
Well, some men might consider me a little more beautiful.
I'm one of them.
No, but look at it, look. Do you realize that the big brain can calculate elliptical integrals?
Is that good?
Good. Why, the human mind has never been able to solve elliptical integrals. There've been no methods of solution, but this machine can.
Yeah, there's one thing your big brain can't do, Professor.
Huh? What's that?
Well, it can't take this here racing sheet here and dope out the winners of tomorrow's races.
Racing? You're still playing the horses, eh, Pop?
Yeah, not doing so good either. Well, I gotta make my rounds. Nice talking to you, everyone, folks.
Good night, Mrs. Winson.
Night, Pop.
You know, I really should be jealous of that machine, Liz. A certain light appears in your eyes when you speak of it. Sometimes I think that you care more for that.
But you don't really believe that.
No, not really.
Hey, look. Pop left his racing paper behind.
Oh. Why are you looking through it?
I've never read a racing paper before. It's interesting.
I
Very
can't make heads or tails out of it.
No, look down here. You see, these are the explanations for the abbreviations and symbols. You know, this racing sheet's a treasury of facts. Why, in each race alone, there's over 1,000 facts to be taken into consideration. Yeah.
Now, Liz, you aren't going to spend the rest of the night studying that paper, are you?
You know, I'd always been inclined to think that horse racing was a matter of sheer luck, but that isn't so at all. Just look at all the information that's available in this paper. I can't understand why Pop thought the big brain couldn't calculate the winners of these races.
You mean you think it could?
Well, I see no reason why it shouldn't be able to, in view of all these facts we have on past performances.
Lester, you aren't serious, are you?
Well, of course I am. Look, would you like to try it as an experiment?
An experiment?
Yeah, sure. We'll put all these facts through the machine.
Well, this I have to see to believe. Going away, $9.50. Flying Ghost.
Flying Ghost.
October 5th.
October 5th.
Belmont Park. 3 years old and up. Claiming $5,000. Mile and an eighth, 120 pounds. Jockey Riker, track fast. Post position 4th, start 6th, quarter 4th, half 4th, 3/4 3rd, mile 3rd, stretch 3rd, finish 3rd. 2 lengths driving. $5.20.
$5.20.
That does it. 8 races. Well, now that you've given all the facts to the machine, what's next?
I just pull this lever, and the calculator goes to work.
How long does it take?
Oh, it's just a matter of seconds.
Liz, do you really think it'll work?
Work? Why, of course. Unless the machine breaks down. As you can see, it's working perfectly. The solution's been attained. There.
Well, let me see it. First race, winner, yet a deer. 3-1. Place, Speeding Folly, 3-2. Show, Quaker Girl, 4-5. And it has the results of the other races as well.
Well, naturally.
And these horses are the winners?
Yes, there's no question of that. Tomorrow night we'll buy an evening paper with the racing results, and you'll see for yourself.
Liz.
Uh-huh.
If you're so sure that these are the winners, why not make a small bet on the first race?
Small bet?
Yeah. Bet $2 to win on Yet a Deer in the first race. Then, if Yet a Deer wins, as you say she will, put all the winnings on the second race, then the third and the fourth and the fifth.
But I couldn't do a thing like that.
Well, why not?
Well, it wouldn't be ethical. I'm here from the university as a guest of this company. The information we get from the machine, it belongs to the company. They own the machine.
Oh, now, Liz, stop being stuffy. Look, we've been saving for a year now to get married. If the machine is right, we could win enough money to buy all our furniture. Who knows, maybe even a house.
Look, I'm sorry, Julia, but I'm afraid I
Why are you so stubborn? Who could it possibly harm? Think of what it would mean to us.
Sure, I know, but...
Please, darling.
Pardon me, where can I make a $2 wager?
Right here, friend. What's your pleasure?
My pleasure? Oh, I'd like to bet on Yet a Deer in the first race at Belmont.
$2?
Yes, please.
Here you are. Yet a Deer paid $6.20. Here you are.
Thank you. Now I'd like to bet $6 to win on Morning Glory in the second race at Belmont.
6 on the nose on Morning Glory. Okay, you covered. That's 2,400, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 40. 2,840. I've been around a long time, but I've never seen it happen before.
Oh, well, there's the law of averages, you know. You're bound to see it if you live long enough.
Yeah, so they say.
I'd like to bet the whole lot now to win on Stormy Night in the 7th.
No doubt in your mind, huh? Okay, you covered.
Thank you.
Hello, Gladys. This is Steve. Connect me with the penthouse. Want to speak to the boss. There he is, boss. This is the guy I told you about on the phone.
Come in, Professor. Come in. I'm Victor King.
How do you know who I am?
Oh, it's my business to know the names of the people who patronize our establishment. All right, Steve, that'll be all.
Okay, boss. Be waiting outside.
Well, I understand, Professor, that you selected the winners of 8 races straight, and that I owe you $24,250.
That's right.
Oh, here you are, $24,250. What's wrong? Lose something?
Yeah, my wallet. I can't find it.
Oh, yes, your wallet. I have it here.
Huh?
You must have dropped it a little while ago in the racing room. One of my men found it and turned it over to me. Naturally, I had to go through it to find out who the owner was.
Oh. Yeah, I suppose so.
Besides $17, there were a number of things in it. A driver's license, a state university faculty card, a pass for admittance to the technical laboratory of worldwide business machines, and, this sheet of paper.
Oh. Yes, that.
It's very interesting, Professor. It has listed a selection of today's winning plates for the 8 races at Belmont. And strangely enough, every horse on this list came in exactly as selected. How would you explain that, Professor?
I don't have to explain it. Now, if you'll be so good as to return my wallet and everything that was in it...
I'm sorry, Professor, but I'm afraid you'll have to play ball, whether you want to or not.
What do you mean?
Sit down, Professor, and I'll tell you. Oh, sit down, Professor. That's it. And now we can really get down to business.
And then, Julia, he showed me pictures that he'd had taken of me in the racing room, a half dozen of them. All showing me making bets.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, he even had a camera hidden in the wall of his penthouse office, which filmed everything I said and did up in that penthouse.
And he demands that you give him the winners of every day's races.
Yes, it's blackmail, pure and simple. He has all the evidence he needs.
But, Lester, if you were to go to the university officials, the president of Worldwide Business Machines...
That'd be the end of my academic career. You know how the university is about such things. They'd regard my use of the big brain as dishonesty or worse.
Les, what are you going to do?
What can I do? I've got to supply King with the winners. If I don't, he'll expose me. He'll ruin my career.
What about a cigar, a drink, Professor?
No, thanks.
I'm feeling good, really good. 3 days in a row, all the winners at Belmont. Yes, sir, I'm feeling good. Oh, by the way, I'm putting your share of the winnings aside, Professor. It now amounts to $46,000. You can have it any time you want it.
Told you before, I don't want any part of that money.
Don't be a fool, Professor. Money's the only thing that counts. And what are you worried about? No one's going to find out our little secret? Not as long as just the two of us know about it.
My purpose in coming here was to explain to you that I can no longer go on with this.
Now listen to me, Professor. You're going on supplying me with winners. We're playing this out to the finish. Now, today is Monday. I'm figuring on flying out to Santa Anita in a few days for the big handicap on Saturday. I want you to dope out the winners as soon as possible. I'm figuring on making a real killing at the track.
I won't do it.
Now, Professor, we don't have to go over that again, do we? I see we do. Okay, Professor, I'll put it on the line, straight, no trimmings. Now, sit down. This may take a little time.
Did you see Victor King?
Yeah, I saw him, Julia.
Well, what did he say?
Seems I have to play his way, or else.
Oh, Les.
Mr. King is a master of blackmail.
Les, what are those hundreds of books for? What are you doing?
These are flight records of the different airlines that fly to the West Coast. These records go back 5 years.
Well, what are you doing with them?
Trying an experiment. Don't know whether or not it'll work.
What kind of an experiment?
I'm attempting to find out if the big brain, given all the available flight information, can determine the date and time of a future plane crash.
A future plane crash?
Yeah.
But why?
Victor King is going to fly to California within the next few days. As yet, he hasn't decided what flight he's taking.
Well, what has that got to do... Les.
Julia, why not? How else can I fight back? Maybe this whole experiment is crazy, but if the big brain can determine future plane crashes, and if one is due to occur within the next 5 days, I'm going to do my best to see to it that Victor King is on that plane.
Les, what you're doing is insane.
Maybe. Time will tell.
Look, you must listen to me. You've got to go to the university officials and make a clean breast of things. I'm sure that they...
There. Solution's been attained.
Oh, let me see it. Flight 106, Universal Airlines, 4:30 p.m., New York to Los Angeles. Crash 6:31 near Clinton, Ohio, February the 24th.
February 24th, that's this Friday. And King wants to be in California Saturday for the races.
But, Les, if there's a possibility of that plane crashing, we've got to go to the airline and warn them.
But if I went to them and told them, gentlemen, I believe that Flight 106 on February 24th is going to crash, well, what do you think they'd say? They'd have me placed under mental observation.
But, Les, if that plane crashes, killing innocent people, you'll never forgive yourself.
What's going to be will be. I can't prevent that which is ordained to happen.
And you're going to try to see it that Victor King is on Flight 106?
Yeah. Come what may, I've got to make sure he's on that flight. Hello.
Hello, Professor. This is Victor King.
Yes, Mr. King.
It's already Wednesday afternoon. Why haven't I received the winners of Saturday's races at Santa Anita?
I'm afraid I can't have them for you until Friday afternoon, around 4.
Why not?
I've got to have last-minute scratchings and other information to be able to calculate the winners.
Friday afternoon? That doesn't give me much time to get to Santa Anita.
Look, why don't I meet you at the airport Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock? There's a 4:30 plane to California, Flight 106.
Flight 106, huh? Leaves 4:30. Okay, see you then.
Don't worry, King. I'll be there. There's the gate for Flight 106, Julia. Straight ahead. And there's King with his bodyguard.
Hello, Professor. Cutting it rather fine, aren't you? It's already 4:25. The plane's ready to leave.
I was delayed by traffic. Here's the list of winners for tomorrow's races.
Oh, good. Walk me to the plane. I want to talk to you. Oh. Professor, I've got a little surprise for your girlfriend.
Surprise?
Yeah, that's right. Me and Steve here are taking you with us. We're gonna show you the time of your lives.
Yes, sir. But we can't go. I have classes.
Ah, what are you talking about? This is Friday. We'll have you back by Monday. Now, come on, get aboard.
We haven't any clothes.
Oh, yes, you have. Brought along clothes for both of you. Everything's been taken care of. You two are going if we have to carry you aboard.
What time is it?
Julia, stop asking me the time every minute. I just told you.
I can't stand this much longer. You've got to tell him. It's our only chance.
Tell him?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you're right. King.
What is it, Professor?
Come a little closer. I've got something to tell you.
Sure. What is it?
This plane. It's going to crash at 6:31.
Crash? What are you talking about?
You heard me. The plane is going to crash.
I like a joke, but that's not funny.
It's not a joke. Can't you see he's serious?
How do you know the plane's gonna crash?
The same way I found out about the winners, the big brain.
If you aren't leveling with me, Well, I guess you are. You're scared. Real scared. I'm getting scared, too. Why'd you let us in for this? You must have known before we got on this plane that... I get it. You didn't figure on me taking you along.
Hey, boss, we gotta do something.
Yeah. I'll settle with you two later. Come on, Steve.
What are you going to do?
You'll see. Have your gun ready, Steve. We're making the pilot set us down, but fast.
Yeah, sure.
Here's where we take over.
Sorry, sir. Passengers aren't allowed up here.
Steve.
The gun?
Yeah. Now listen, bright boy. You and your little playmate here are going to set this plane down fast.
What for?
Because I say so. Now, don't argue. Land this plane.
Well, nearest airfield is 20 minutes away. It can't
Shut up. Set it down now, this minute. Make an emergency landing.
You must be out of your mind.
Steve, count 5. If you don't start putting down, give it to the co-pilot.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. You're calling it. Peter, give me a reading.
Speed 240 miles per hour. Altitude 3,000.
As we come over this mountain, there's a large field. We'll try to set down on it.
Roger.
Pete, give it to the passengers over the PA.
Roger. We are now preparing to land. Passengers are asked to remain calm. Please fasten all safety belts.
You two guys had better go back to your seats. Fasten your belts. It's gonna be a rough landing.
Yeah, if it's all the same to you, we'll stay right here where we can keep an eye on you.
Suit yourself. You don't mind if Peter and me strap ourselves in, do you?
Cut the chatter and land!
Give me a reading, Pete.
Speed 230 miles per hour. Altitude 1,000 feet.
Flaps down.
Flaps down.
Landing gear down.
Landing gear down.
Landing lights on.
Landing lights on.
Reading.
Speed 180 miles. Altitude 500 feet. Speed 145. Altitude 200 feet. Speed 135. 125. 115. 95. Down. 80. 70. Hey, Bob, there's a ditch across the field. Take her up.
Too late. Hang on.
Head.
Just lie quietly, Lace.
Julia, where am I?
You're in a hospital. You've been unconscious almost 3 hours, but the doctor says you'll be up in a few days.
The plane crash, yeah? Julia, are you all right?
Oh, I was just shaken up. Nothing else.
Victor King. What about him?
King and his bodyguard, Steve, were killed.
Killed?
Yes, when the plane crashed, they were up front without safety belts.
Anybody else killed?
No. Half dozen were hurt, but they'll all live.
Strange. The big brain picked the winners, but it was wrong about the plane crash.
Wrong?
Well, yes. After all, the only reason the plane crashed was because King forced the pilot to make an emergency landing.
You're overlooking just one fact, Les.
What?
The plane crashed at 6:31 p.m. The exact moment that the big brain said it would. How do you explain that, Professor?
This is Tony Roberts again. Yes, young Professor DeWitt has a good deal to ponder about while he recovers in the hospital. Would a plane crash have occurred if Victor King hadn't forced the pilot to make an emergency landing? Or was that the crash the big brain predicted? It's hard to say. But one thing is certain. Professor DeWitt, for some strange reason, has lost all scientific interest in the big brain. Goodbye now, and be with us again next week as we adventure into fear.
The marketers of Mobil Gas and Mobil Oil and your local Mobil Gas dealer now take you to the Macquarie Auditorium and the man who can make you the Mobil Gas millionaire. Here he is, Bobby Lim.
Well, hello, everybody. Well, we're all set for a battle of wit, and may the best gag win. From the thousands of stories which the listeners have sent us this week, I've selected those which look the best. Each story is worth at least £5 to the lucky listeners, provided neither of our two story toppers succeed in gaining a higher laughter score, as indicated by the electrically controlled laughter meter. The meter is in view of the audience and is numbered 50 to 100 to 100 plus. And now, let's meet our toppers. I'd like to introduce first of all, well, somebody that really needs no introduction. He's a great pal of ours, a great pal of yours. Willie Fennell. Yes? All right, now the next person I'd like... Hello, girls. There's some girls just come in. Meet them. There they are. Hello. All right, I'd like to introduce now a great pal of ours, great pal of yours also. It's Buster Fidesz. Here he is.
Hello, Mr. Lim. How are you, Will?
All right, now, before we get started, here's something to interest you.
A reminder about Bobby Lim's November Mobil Gas Millionaire Contest. One person will win 21 fabulous prizes worth between £5,500 and £7,000. Prizes fit for a millionaire.
And as well as the major prizes, we're offering 440 consolation prizes. There are 20 Remington Roller Electrics and 20 Remington Princess Ladies Shavers, plus 400 free mobile lubrications and oil changes.
Call in to your Mobil Gas service station tomorrow and collect entry forms for the November Mobil Gas Millionaire Contest. You could win those 21 luxurious prizes in time for Christmas.
Right, now let's get cracking. Here is the first listener story for tonight, and remember the toppers... Buster? He's pretty... Remember the... Here's our first listener story for tonight, and remember the toppers have to think up a story on the spur of the moment upon the same subject as the listener's story. Our first story tonight is worth £15. All right, that's not for you. All right, and it comes from Mrs. Wilson of St. Maurice, Adelaide, South Australia. And here it is. A sporting personality went into a bird shop. He'd heard of a canary that was a champion boxer. You see? Fighter, that is. Well, he saw the canary in a gilded cage with a little mouldy sparrow in the same cage. Well, the proprietor, to demonstrate the battling canary, put an eagle into the cage, you see, and then hit a gong, and a fight was on. And in next to no time, the eagle was knocked out cold. and there was a canary standing up there prancing around. Well, the sporting chap said, he was amazed. He said, right, I'll take that canary, I'll make a fortune. I'll take that canary. And the fellow said, well, you have to take the sparrow, too. He said, I don't want the sparrow, the moldy-looking thing. I just want the canary. I'll take the canary. Name your own price. He said, you have to take the sparrow. He said, I don't want it. Why do I have to take the sparrow? He said, you'll have to take the sparrow. He's the trainer. Yeah? Yep. Well, we scored an 80 with that, Mr. Wilson, or Miss Wilson, Miss Wilson, I forget now. An 80 with that one. So it means the toppers have to try and top that. Bill, can you beat that story?
Stop it. It's my turn. I've got a little one about a canary, yes. It's about a bloke who went into a grocer's shop and he said, I want a cake of soap. And the grocer said, yes, what kind of soap would you like? He said, I don't care what kind. He said, I just want a cake of soap to wash me canary. And the grocer said, but he said, you can't wash your canary with soap. He said, that'll kill the little bird. He said, it won't kill him at all. He said, just give us a cake of soap. He said, don't ask any questions, just give it to me. The bloke said, all right, here's your cake of soap. But he said, I'm telling you, it'll kill the bird. He said, never mind about that, I'll be right. So away he went. A few days later, the grocer happened to see this bloke walking down the street, and he thought, I'll go and ask him a question. So he went up and he said, by the way, sir, remember me, I'm the grocer. He said, how's your little bird? The bloke said, he's dead. He said, dead. There you are. He said, I told you the soap would kill him. He said, it wasn't the soap at all. It was drying him with that silly-looking ringer.
An 80 with that one. We're even. We're still in the business, Mr. Wilson of South Australia.
You're off.
Because you scored an 80, so you didn't beat the story, Bill. We're still in business. Buster, can you beat that story?
I was just thinking.
What with? I mean, what about?
You did. I was just thinking about a story to top that. Let me see. Oh, yes, this is about a chap from the country. He came down from the country and he's walking around through the city and he came to a little bird shop. And outside the bird shop there was a little cage, and inside the cage there was a cockatoo. So while he was standing looking at the cockatoo said, I know something about you. So that's funny. So I went into the shop and he said to the man, that bird in the cage, he said, out there, he said, how much do you want for him? He said, oh, he's not for sale. He happens to be a show bird. He said, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll sell you one of his eggs. He said, very cheap, £1. Then you can take it back to the country, you can hatch it up there, and then, so. Very good idea. So he bought the egg, went back to the country. 12 months later, he came down, walked up to the shop, standing outside. There was the bird still in the cage standing there. He walked up and looked at him. The bird said, I know something about you. Got off in the country, said, I know something about you, too. Your husband was a duck.
Scored 90. There we are. I scored a 90 with that one. So, bad luck, Mrs. Wilson. But we are sending you £2.10 as a consolation by courtesy of Mobile Gas. And now that makes our next story worth £20. Now, here's an announcement I'm sure you'll all be interested to hear.
Hey, Bobby, how about listing the 21 fabulous prizes to be won by the Mobile Gas Millionaire for November?
Right, here we go. There's a return air flight for two to Paris by Qantas, a new two-tone Simca Aron from Chrysler, £500 worth of Commonwealth Trading Bank traveller's checks.
There's a luxurious Ember Diadem Mink Cape Stole from Cornelius Furs of Sydney, a diamond-studded Bolivar ladies' wristwatch, and a Gent's solid white gold automatic. Then there's a new model Carrier air conditioner.
And a complete Bolex photographic outfit, a four-seater Jax Marine 12-foot runabout powered by a 25-horsepower Scott outboard motor. There's a ladies' and man's matched set of V8 Power Pack golf clubs, complete with bags and buggies from East Brothers.
A Whirlwind 18-inch rotary lawnmower and a 20-inch rotary motor scythe. A Whirlwind go-kart powered by twin 98cc Villiers engines.
A Vespa 125 or 125cc special motor scooter and 1 year's membership plus £300 credit with the Diners Club.
There you are, 21 luxurious prizes. Nearest correct entry in the Mobile Gas Millionaire Contest for November wins the lot. Get entry forms from your mobile gas dealer tomorrow.
Right, now our second story is from Brian A. Hotchkiss of 36 Longworth Avenue, Wallsend. She was said of it. Brian. What's it? Oh, no. Now, please. If you don't mind, please, Mrs. Cleghorn, I know that you're the cleaner here. Would you mind cleaning somewhere else? Not. Why do you pick this?
I feel too nostalgic today.
You what?
I feel nostalgic. I haven't got me art and me dusting in me Macquarie Auditorium. I was watching all the kids coming out of school, and it takes you back, don't it, love?
Yeah, takes you back a long way. Did you enjoy your holidays? Your school days, I should say?
Oh, yeah, my mother wanted me to have all the opportunities she didn't have.
Yeah, what did she do?
She sent me to a boys' school.
Well, I suppose you were pretty popular.
Oh, yes, love. I remember me first love affair.
Yeah?
I was in love with the fattest boy in the class.
Fat?
Yeah, he was so fat no matter where I sat, I was near him.
You didn't marry him, though.
Oh, no, love, I married me husband.
Yeah. Well, that was very convenient.
Yes, good old Bert. He's a good old stick. He's nothing out of the box, but there's one thing about him.
Yeah?
A lie has never passed his lips.
Why?
He talks through his nose, lover.
I honestly don't know why Mrs. Cleghorn has to pick this one show to come out of. I don't know. Do you, Buster? Just happen to pick this show to come out every time. It doesn't happen to any other show.
I think she's here through the day sometimes.
Is she? Well, anyway, this story, the second story, comes from Brian A. Hotchkiss, I think it is. Hotchkiss of 36 Longworth Avenue, Wallsend. And this is it. One afternoon, a little boy asked his father where he came from. His father thought for a second and then replied, well, yeah, I knew this was coming. Well, one night I got a dish and I sprinkled some seeds on it and I put it in the oven. Well, next morning when I opened the oven door, you were there. Anyway, so the little boy thought he'd try. So that night he took down a dish and sprinkled some seeds on it and put it in the oven. In the morning when he opened the oven door, there was a big cockroach in there. Well, the little boy saw it and said, you're a horrible-looking thing and I ought to kill you, but I can't. I'm your father. Well, we scored, what did we score with that one? We scored 90. A 90 with that one. Well, that's not so bad. A 90, yeah? That's wonderful. That's from Brian Hotchkiss of Wallsend. Well, now, Buster, can you beat that story?
Yes, about children at school. That's a good idea. Let me see. Oh, this is about the teacher was asking questions, and she asked the little boy in the back row, Johnny Smithers, I think his name was. She said, "Do you tell me who signed the Magna Carta?" And he said, "No, and I don't know, and I don't care, and I don't want to know. I'm not interested at all." "How dare you speak to me like that and reply like that?" She said, "I'll get your father at once." So she said, one of the boys home to get his father, and he came back. And he said, "Your boy, I asked him a question. I asked him who signed the Magna Carta, and he said he don't know, he don't care, and he's not even interested." His father said, "Listen, come here." He said, "I've always told you to tell the truth. Did you sign it or didn't you?"
Yep. Buster scored an 80. An 80 with that one, an 80, so we're right in business. Brian Hotchkiss of Wallsend. Bill, can you top that one?
Well, I've only got a very short little one. I don't know about it. It's about two children, and you mentioned where they came from, but this is about two little girls, about 4 years of age, Jennifer and Susan. They were having a terrific argument sitting on the gutter, and Jennifer seemed to be winning the whole argument, and eventually Susan thought, I'd better win something or other with this kid. So she said, "Well, anyway, my mummy is my real mummy and yours isn't. You're only adopted." And Jennifer turned calmly and said, "I know, but my mummy chose me. Your mummy was stuck with what she got."
A 90. Well, Bill scored a 90 with that one, but the score wasn't beaten because Brian Hotchkiss of Wallsend He also scored a 90, which means that our story, your story wasn't beaten, Brian. So congratulations to you, Brian Hotchkiss. You have won £20. And now our next story starts off at £5. Now, before we continue, here is an important message. All right, here comes our third story, and this is from A. Blackmore of Slade Point via Mackay. And this is about the Army, if you want to think about the Army. Anything to do with the Army? Oh, no, not again, no.
You read some funny things in the paper, don't you?
Well, I'm not interested in the paper, Mrs. Cleghorn. We're trying to get on with the show.
Look, listen, there's an ad here in the Citerations Wanted column.
Yeah.
Now listen to this. Wanted. An ambitious young man to wash dishes and 2 waitresses. Now there's a job that'd suit you, Mr. Lim, wouldn't it?
Well, what do you mean?
Well, I saw you at the front of the auditorium last week with that girl.
With what?
With that girl. You were winking at her.
I was not winking. Something got in my eye.
Oh, yeah? Well, she got in your car as well.
Mrs. Cleghorn, I won't have you standing about here spreading malicious gossip about me.
It's no trouble, love, no trouble at all. As a matter of fact, I could go for you myself. You're rather attractive for your age, aren't you?
Well, dear, do you really think... What do you mean for my age?
Well, like your face give you away a bit, love. It's them crow's feet.
Why, have I got crow's feet?
Yes, love, but don't worry. Just keep your shoes on and nobody'll know the difference.
Get out! Get out of here! Always saddled with that woman coming in here all the time. Drives you balmy. All right, here's the next one. It's from A. Blackmore of Slade Point via Mackay, way up north. And it's an Army one, fellas, if you like. Bluey joined the Army just after being married and was then sent overseas. His battalion was stationed miles from nowhere and had been away close on 3 years. Well, anyway, the company's mail arrived and Bluey got a letter, opened it, and shouted, "Hey, fellas, what do you think? I'm a father. My wife had a son last week." His mate said, "That's ridiculous. How can that be? You've been here for 3 years." Bluey said, "Well, that's nothing. There's 6 years between my brother and me." Well, we scored a 70 for that. A. Blackmore of Mackay. I don't know whether it's Mr. and Mrs. or what there, but we scored a 70. Well, Bill, can you beat that story?
I don't think so, no. Yes, a couple of Army blokes. Yes, this is a story about a Yank and an Aussie, and they were sitting in the New Guinea jungle. There was plenty of rain pouring down, and the Yank said to the Aussie, he said, "By gee, Aussie," he said, "I'd like to have this sort of rain back home. It's really terrific." And the Aussie said, "What do you mean?" He said, "What did you do back home?" The Yank said, "Well," he said, "I was a market gardener." And he said, I used to plant a lot of cabbages. He said, "I remember one time," he said, "I had a 20-acre paddock, and I planted a cabbage right in the middle of the 20 acres, and 1 cabbage in each corner." And he said, "Do you know," he said, in a few months, he said, "that whole 20 acres was just covered with those 5 cabbages." He said, "Them's real cabbages, you know." And the Aussie said, "Oh, yes." He said, "Pretty big cabbages." So there was silence for a while, and eventually the Yank thought, Aussie hasn't said much. He said, "Hey, Aussie," he said, "what did you do back home?" The Aussie said, "Well, as a matter of fact," he said, "I was a boiler maker. Used to make a lot of those big boilers." He said, "I remember one Friday we were making a big copper." And he said, we finished the copper, he said, and just as the knock-off whistle went, I dropped a hammer into it. And he said, when I came back to work on the Monday morning, I heard it hit the bottom. Oh, wait a minute. Wait for it. So, the Yank said, he said, "That's a pretty big copper." He said, "Why do you want to make them that big?" The Aussie said, "Well, we got to make them that big to cook your flaming cabbages in."
90.
Thank you for your kind appreciation.
Yeah, well, Bill really topped that one because against A. Blackmore's score of 70, Bill scored a 90. Well, that's wonderful. Your story was beaten, Mr. or Mrs. Blackmore. I'd like you to accept, however, £2.10, which is on its way to you by courtesy of Mobil Gas. That means next week's story is worth £10. Well, now it's time to say goodnight from your mirth enemies, the two knights of the clown table, Willie Fennell.
Good night, everybody. Thanks, Bobby.
There's Buster Fidesz.
Good night, Bob. Good night, Billy. Good night, Dawn. Good night, everybody.
And Dawn Lake.
Hurry up. And remember, don't say nothing at all if you can't say nothing about nobody.
Yeah, sure. And from Bobby Lim saying, let's have some good stories so that we can whip up real fun when we get together again. Good night, and see you next week.
Turn back the clock. Roll back the decades of the centuries. Experiment with time. We invite you, ladies and gentlemen, you and you and you, sitting at home in your comfortable armchairs, to turn back the clock, to watch the pageant of the past become the drama of the timeless present, to hear a voice speaking out of the lost yesterdays, to join with the man behind that voice, who takes the microphone back into history in an experiment with time. If I were king.
In a few moments now, we'll be crossing to the 18th century for an eyewitness account of how madness came to the second Hamlet, the young King Christian of Denmark, and of the strange rise and tragic fall of Struensee, dictator, lover, and doctor of medicine. Calling the 18th century. Calling the 18th century. Are you ready? Yes, I am ready. I hope you can hear me, because I have to speak very quietly here. I am in the little dirty, untidy attic room of a Montmartre tenement in 18th century Paris. A dirty little old man sprawls at a writing desk among scattered papers, a wine bottle in his hand.
Who can this be? There's the landlord again.
Monsieur Rousseau! Are you there, Monsieur Rousseau?
I am so sorry. Monsieur Rousseau has gone away to the country.
Then be so good as to tell Monsieur Rousseau I've come to pay my respects to the greatest philosopher in Europe.
Ah, that is different. Wait. Come in, young man, come in. Now, let me see. Who are you?
A stranger.
Oh, wait till I raise this candle. Oh, a tall stranger. A strong, dominant stranger. If I read those eyes aright.
Sir, I have a question to ask Monsieur Rousseau. A question on which the fate of a kingdom may depend.
Then ask it, sir. I must drop this foolish pretense. I am Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
I know it. May I take your hand?
Your question, sir.
Master, suppose a man has read every word of your philosophy, has lived and breathed your philosophy.
Yes?
Suppose such a man had grown up in hatred of kings and tyrants, and in love of the common people who are everywhere oppressed. Suppose such a man were willing to give his life in the cause of liberty, and had found a means to accomplish his task.
What? Go on.
Suppose such a man held in his hands the body and soul of a king.
A king? But we are men who believe kings to be evil. We must abolish kings if the people are to be free.
A king was a puppet in the hands of a liberator and set the people free.
But the liberator himself, would not power corrupt him? Would he not himself be in effect a king? Would not the evils of kingship run in his veins, poison his purpose, and make him a tyrant in the name of liberty?
But, Master...
No, my dear stranger. Let me finish. I am not deceived. You yourself are this liberator, and you tell me you hold a king in the hollow of your hand. Never was a man so tempted. But you must not. I tell you, stranger, you must not pursue good by evil means.
Good night to you, Monsieur Rousseau.
Wait, young man, till I raise the candle again. Look at me, young man. Yes, I see you will carry out your purpose, whatever an old philosopher may say. What a face. The burning eyes of an idealist, the sensual lips of a voluptuary. Stranger, you frighten me. What is your name?
Frederick Struensee. Good night to you, Monsieur Rousseau.
Frederick Struensee. Something tells me I shall hear that name again, if I live.
Calling the 20th century. Can you hear me? The Danish Privy Council is assembling at Copenhagen. We're attending the meeting. Here is the president, Herr Guldberg, a predatory old vulture of a man with a waxy complexion and a scurfy coat collar. And here is Count Rantzau, with the face of a debauched cavalier. They say he murdered one of the Empress Catherine's lovers to become her next. And here is Herr Schimmelmann, a wise, kindly, but terribly shrewd old Jew. And now the council is seated.
Gentlemen, we must deal first with the appalling state of the privy purse. During his visit to London, His Majesty has drawn on our London funds to the extent of $500,000. We must make that good. Herr Schimmelmann, Denmark expects your help.
I think I should tell you, gentlemen, that I have already given a private loan to His Majesty.
What? For how much?
$500,000.
On what security?
The royal palaces.
$1 million in 3 weeks. But how could His Majesty?
Oh, Goldberg, you are a stick in the mud. You know quite well how His Precious Majesty spends $1 million in 3 weeks. Liquor, gaming, diamonds to Milady Talbot and half a dozen other high-born ladies of joy. Liquor, throwing sovereigns to the mob. Liquor, and yet more liquor. I tell you, gentlemen, our pretty Hamlet will cost us a few more millions before delirium tremens catches up with him.
Count Rantzau! Respect for His Majesty, if you please. Herr Schimmelmann, we were suggesting that for the health of the Jewish community, you should make a loan.
Certainly, gentlemen. The House of Schimmelmann will stand another $500,000.
Thank you, Baron Schimmelmann. And your security?
The Danish Navy, gentlemen.
What? What the devil?
Why not? They are good ships, gentlemen.
Are you serious?
Perfectly serious and quite firm.
Then we have no option. Now to our second business, gentlemen, the serious situation arising from the King's health.
What, has he got the screaming devils already?
Count Rantzau, please. You gentlemen will remember the somewhat disturbing period we passed through when His Majesty was under the impression that he was Hamlet in Shakespeare's play. Well, it seems that the stresses of travel have caused that hallucination to return again, together with others more serious.
Has the poor lad a medical advisor?
Well, there is a doctor in his train, the only man who has any control over him, I believe. Dr. Struensee, Frederick Struensee.
Struensee. That means the wild and stormy sea. Strange name. I don't remember to have heard it before.
No, he is nothing, a mere lackey. But about the king, gentlemen, I believe that he is posting home at top speed. We must act. Under the circumstances, I must move for a regency. The king is, not fitted to rule.
Let us give the poor young man a rest by all means. But who shall be regent?
By Her Majesty the Queen, of course. Who else?
Count Ranso. Let me remind you that Her Majesty is an English princess who has not yet learnt our ways. Moreover, she is very young and inexperienced.
Inexperienced, you say? Inexperienced? After 2 years of marriage to that demented hell-rake we call a king? After 2 years being snubbed and ostracized by the stuffiest court in Christendom? Why, there's more brains and guts in that little woman than the whole Privy Council put together. I tell you, if I were 20 years younger, I tell you, I'd die for that woman. What the devil?
Gentlemen, attention. His Majesty the King.
Frederick, who are these gentlemen? Should I speak to them?
The Privy Council, Christian. Speak to them.
Good day to you, gentlemen.
We had not expected your majesty.
We trust your majesty as well.
Oh, I'm much better. Am I not, Frederick? I had some bad dreams. Terrible dreams. But Frederick cured me, did you not, Frederick? You must love and admire Frederick as I do, gentlemen.
Your Majesty, who is this fellow?
Oh, but I forgot. Gentlemen, I must present my wonderful friend, my perfect guide and counselor, Dr. Struensee. From this moment, Count Frederick Struensee.
My respects, gentlemen.
Your Majesty, there is business to discuss. Will you dismiss Count Struensee?
No. Stay with me, Frederick.
Your Majesty, we thought of giving you some temporary relief from the burden of government. In short, a Regency Council. Now, if Your Majesty will just affix the royal signature to this brief deed. Now, here is a pen. Sit here, Your Majesty.
Yes, certainly.
Christian.
You were not invited to speak, sir. Your Majesty must sign.
Christian.
Yes, Frederick.
Go to bed, Christian.
Gentlemen, I cannot sign that thing. Frederick is calling. Goodbye, gentlemen. Goodbye.
Why, the damn low-bred scoundrel.
But the man's a magician.
A very nice gentleman, I thought. Though rather domineering. Calling the 20th century. We are in a room in the palace. The Queen is here, a beautiful young Englishwoman. The King and Struensee have just been announced.
Matilda! Oh, there you are.
I trust you enjoyed your English visit, sir?
Oh, yes, of course. Your mother sent a message, and your royal brother, too, but I forgot what they said.
Indeed, sir.
Oh, but that wasn't what brought me here, Matilda. I want you to meet Count Struensee, my friend. Come forward, Frederick.
Oh, you...
Frederick Struensee, madam.
Oh, of course. Forgive my confusion, Count. It was just that
But it was just that you didn't expect to find Frederick so wonderful and exciting, Matilda. Of course you didn't. Do you know why I brought him here? Because he is going to teach us how to govern our kingdom. He'll make us read books by Rousseau. You too, my dear. Then we'll set the peasants free, and Denmark will be the most glorious kingdom in the world. Oh, Frederick, I'm tired. My head's aching.
Lie down, Christian, and rest.
Excuse me, my dear. Excuse me.
Well, Count Struensee?
Madam, you must help me.
In what way?
You must help me restore the king's mind.
Count Struensee, I feel I can trust you and speak frankly to you. The king has treated me so viciously that I no longer care if he is mad or sane.
He's a human soul, madam.
Is it just because he is a human soul, Struensee, that you wish to save him from madness?
Yes. No, I'll be frank, too. This is a country of people miserably oppressed by poverty, fear, and the tyranny of the landed nobility.
I know it.
Locked up here in my mind is the secret of how to set Denmark free. If I have the power of a king.
By all reports, you have power over a king. Is that not enough?
Madam, the king will be a raving lunatic inside a year, unless you save him. I can soothe him, but the trouble is deep, deeper than I can go. When the king is hopelessly mad, Goldberg will declare a regency. And then God help us all.
If I understand you, Count Struensee, you are asking me, a queen of Denmark, to assist you in a revolution. You are a strange man, Count Struensee.
Well, madam?
I will help you, Struensee. I abominate serfdom, too. I am an Englishwoman, remember. But it's not only that.
Well, madam?
Oh, I'm a fool to give myself away like this. But I will tell you. When you walked forward into the light to meet me, you were like a golden god striding into the sun. You were so vital, so glowing. And I've been so lonely. So dreadfully alone and cold. I can't say more except I'm with you, Frederick Struensee.
Madam, don't cry like that. Look at me. There, hold my hand, sir, and look at me. Now, there's nothing to cry about, is there?
No, there isn't. I'm just a foolish girl. Now, tell me, how can I help you with the king?
You won't like what I have to say.
What is it?
I don't like it either. In fact, I don't know.
Now you are being weak. Tell me plainly, how can I help you with the king?
Become his wife again.
But I am his wife. Oh, you mean... Oh, no, Frederick. Don't ask that of me. You couldn't be so cruel.
But, Madam Matilda, I do ask it of you.
You, whom I thought warm and golden like the sun. You're as hard as flint now.
Would you like my heart to rule my head?
Oh, yes, I would.
Frederick, where are you?
Yes, Christian. Remember.
Frederick, I've a wonderful idea. I'm going traveling. Do you know, I've never seen my kingdom. So off I'll go right away, galloping in a great golden coach. Will the people cheer, do you think?
I'm sure they will, Christian. The journey would do you and Her Majesty a lot of good.
Oh, but the Queen won't go, Frederick. She doesn't like me. She thinks I'm a bit mad, you know.
I'm sure you'll go with the king, madam.
Frederick. Yes, I'll go.
But that's splendid, Matilda. 3 loving friends on a journey. You and Frederick and I.
Oh, I am needed in Copenhagen, Your Majesty. I will not come.
Nonsense, Frederick. For once I'll have my way. Tell him to come, Matilda.
Oh, Frederick, for God's sake, come.
My duty. Oh, to the devil with duty. Yes, I'll come.
Calling the 20th century. Can you hear me? I'm speaking from the great hall of Count Rantzau's hunting lodge. A banquet is nearly over. Matilda and Frederick sit hand in hand with Count Rantzau on the Queen's right.
Where's the king, Frederick?
Shooting rats, I believe, Count. He's happy anyway.
Well, I give you a toast. Friends, all of you, I give you the toast of the Queen of Denmark and Count Struensee. By gad, sirs, there's a woman for you. Catherine of Russia couldn't sit a horse better, or bedevil a man more thoroughly. Gad, sirs, if I were 20 years younger. But Frederick here now, low born, of course, no offense, Frederick, but he can sit a horse too, and get his woman, by gad, a tricky dog. If poor King Christian knew what I know. But there, poor lad, he don't. So least said, soonest mended. Now the toast, friends, the toast!
The Queen! Count Struensee!
Right you are, friends. Out to the barn now. There's music there. We'll dance. We'll leave these two lovebirds to themselves. Come on there. Out with you. Out with you all. Don't waste it.
Darling, do you mind that coarse fellow very much?
No. I should mind, but I don't. I want people to think of us as lovers. Do you know what I shall do when we return to Copenhagen?
I can guess.
No, you can't. I shall go out on the palace balcony and shout, Frederick Struensee loves me. Because, you see, nothing else in the world matters except that one thing. Frederick Struensee loves me.
Oh, my darling. Come here. Closer.
Frederick! Frederick! Oh, there you are. Oh, Matilda kissing. Frederick, I see. Didn't I tell you how much you'd like him? You know I'm the happiest man alive. Because I've got the best wife and the best friend in Christendom.
Christian!
What is it, Frederick?
There's something I must tell you.
No, Frederick, no.
I can't go on, I tell you. I can't go on and on deceiving a friend so abominably. I must tell Christian.
What is it, Frederick? Have I done something wrong?
Let me put you to bed, Christian. You must be tired shooting all those rats.
Oh, God help me. Was Rousseau right? What sort of a man have I become?
Calling the 20th century. Can you hear me? We are in the state office of Count Struensee, Chancellor of Denmark. Struensee, who has developed the commanding, arrogant presence of a Roman senator during the year that has elapsed since Ransel's banquet, is dictating to a secretary.
Now you must draw up a decree in due form abolishing capital punishment throughout the Kingdom of Denmark. Let me see. Come in.
His Excellency, Baron Schimmelmann.
Schimmelmann, I'm delighted. What's that for?
The bells? My dear Struensee, that's one half of the news I bring you. The Queen has been safely delivered of a child.
What? So it has come. Schimmelmann, you must excuse me. I must go to the Queen.
One moment, young man, not so fast. I have more news. Here, read this.
We, Christian, by the grace of God, do hereby resign and abdicate our royal powers, and do appoint Count Frederick Struensee to be viceroy and absolute ruler of this our realm. In God's name, what is this? Schimmelmann, tell me quickly what it means.
Oh, my poor young man. Yes, I'll tell you. You see, it was like this. Christian was in the Queen's chamber, holding the babe, his face transfigured with joy. In comes Herr Guldberg, and tells the king plainly that the child was not his, but yours.
Go on, man, go on.
Christian looks wildly at the queen, and what he saw in her face opened his eyes.
What did he do?
He was deathly quiet at first. He called for pen and paper and wrote this deed of abdication. He gave it to me, saying, Frederick has my wife. I must give him my kingdom, too.
And then?
And then he went into darkness. The life of intelligence, dim as it was, went out just like that. He threw the cradle through the window. I believe he thought the child was in it. The lackeys overpowered him. He's under lock and key now, howling like an animal. And still the bells peal.
Stop it, Schimmelmann, I tell you. Do you think I planned this evil tragedy? I've lived by the dictates of nature as my master Rousseau told me to do. And I love that woman, Schimmelmann. I love her. I tell you, I'd die for her.
Quiet, young man, quiet. I'm not your judge. You'd die for her, you say. Can you live for her?
Live for her? What do you mean?
Listen, my friend, the Queen is in great danger. So are you. The public know or guess the truth, and the people of Denmark do not lightly forgive royal adultery.
You mean?
I mean the people are out for blood, the Queen's blood and yours.
The people? But I am their liberator. I've given them their freedom, enriched them, abolished feudal tyranny.
Poor young man, sometimes I think you don't see further than your nose. Don't you understand that the people think Christian has freed them? Don't you know that your enemies, with Guldberg at their head, have been working against you for a year past? Why, they've spread the rumor only today that you and Matilda have imprisoned their king to get him out of the way. I tell you, the people want blood. Even Rantzau...
Rantzau will help us. As commander-in-chief of the army, he'll give us military protection. What now? Rantzau with a troop of the guard. Rantzau, do you offer protection?
No, you gutter brat. I offer death.
You too, Rantzau.
You too, Rantzau. You reminded me that I once toasted you as a friend.
I am.
Listen, Struensee. It's true that I've liked you and admired you. But that was before you turned politician. When I think of you, the upstart landless doctor, dividing my land among stinking peasants, you're power drunk, power mad.
And the penalty?
Death.
What of the Queen?
Those vultures want us, Struensee, but they shan't have her. The Queen and her child will sail next week for England.
Thank you, Rantzau. I cannot persuade you of the crime you're committing.
No.
I'm ready then. At what time?
At dawn as the clock strikes 6. Guards, do your duty.
Oh, the poor young man. It's all been too big for him. Much too big.
I'm speaking from the Queen's chamber, and in the presence of utter grief. The Queen is quite alone.
Frederick. Frederick, my golden sun god. My darling lover. I'll save you yet. I must. I'll see Christian. I'll plead with Rantzau. Rantzau will save you. God will save you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, our experiment with time is over. And we're back again, you and I, in our comfortable chairs in the lounges and living rooms of our own 20th century. The artists you've just heard were Patricia Kennedy, Keith Hudson, Robert Peach, Gordon Gow, Richard Davies, John Morgan, and as the Time Observer, you heard Douglas Kelly. The script was written by Alan Nichols and directed by Morris West.
This court is now in session.
For the defense, factual cases from the courtrooms of the world.
The famous trials of many nations.
Tonight, one of the major American trials of this century, the Rosenberg case, as told by a member of the FBI. This is a true story. Some of the names you will recognize. Some have been changed to protect the innocent.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation was formed in the year 1908 as a branch of the United States Department of Justice. Its headquarters are in Washington, with offices in 42 states. The Bureau works for the defense of the country. Its aims are the investigation of crime and all offenses against the law. I guess you've heard of the Rosenberg case. Most people have now. But back in 1944, nobody had heard of this New York engineer and his wife. And no one had heard of David Greenglass. He was in the American Army, an expert machinist who had passed through technical and aviation schools. He must have done well in those courses, for in July 1944, he was paraded before his commanding officer.
Tech Sergeant Greenglass reporting, sir.
At ease, Greenglass. Well, I'm sorry we're going to lose you from Ordnance Workshops.
Lose me, Major?
You've been selected for special duty. You're to proceed to Los Alamos immediately.
Los Alamos, sir? Oh. Is that an army camp?
No, it's some kind of hush-hush project in New Mexico. I don't know any more about it than you do. Well, Sergeant, we're sorry to lose you. Goodbye. Good luck.
David Greenglass. Remember this man, the sergeant technician of the U.S. Army. We'll meet him again. He didn't know the meaning of his assignment to Los Alamos, but there were some who did. That's when it really began, the trouble, I mean. It began some days later when the sergeant's wife, Ruth Greenglass, visited her husband's sister, whose name was Ethel Rosenberg.
More tea, Ruth?
No, thanks, Ethel. Well, I may not be seeing you for some time.
Why not?
I'm going away. Dave has been transferred, and I'm just a camp follower again.
Transferred? Oh, Ruth, how unsettling for you. And just when you thought he was going to spend the rest of the war at that ordnance workshop.
Trust the Army.
He's not being sent overseas, is he?
It's almost as bad. Someplace in the middle of the New Mexican desert.
New Mexican desert? Not Los Alamos?
Yes, that's right. How did you know? I thought the place was supposed to be terribly hush-hush.
It is. Just a moment. Julius?
Yes, my dear?
Can you come here a minute?
What is it, Ethel? Oh, hello, Ruth. I didn't know you were here.
Hello, Julius.
Julius, David's being transferred.
He's being transferred. He was shipped off last night, and I'm to follow him at the end of the week.
Oh, I'm very sorry about that, Ruth. Just when you'd settled down.
Julius, he's been sent to Los Alamos.
What?
Why is everyone so interested in this place? To me, it sounds like the end of nowhere.
Los Alamos. But of course, it's logical.
He's a machinist.
And a good one. But you haven't answered my
As
question.
a sergeant, it's possible he could be made a foreman in one of the machine shops.
It's perfect, Julius. The one place we couldn't reach. The one thing that was beyond us. And now...
It should be all right.
Look, will one of you please tell me just what this is all about?
Of course, Ruth. After all, it's important that you should know. They're making a bomb at Los Alamos.
A bomb?
We don't know very much about it yet. But we do know that hand-picked scientists are engaging in atomic research.
How do you know that, when David knew nothing about it? And even his commanding officer didn't know anything.
I have my ways of finding out. Ruth, it's no secret to you that Ethel and I have ceased all open communist activity.
I wondered about that, Julius.
Well, it's quite simple. We take no part in local politics. We don't even buy the Daily Worker anymore. We've been reserved for other work.
What other work?
Supplying information to Russia.
Ethel, is this true?
Perfectly, Ruth. We're acting on party orders.
Through my engineering contacts, I've been able to pass on certain information about munitions and ordnance. But more than once, I've been asked to get data on the atomic research taking place at Los Alamos.
And up till now, there's been no way to do that.
Up till now?
You must know what we want, Ruth. David can get us this information.
David? He'll be glad to do it. He's been a member of the Young Communist League and always shown himself in sympathy with our aims.
But this is spying.
Oh, that's a melodramatic word, my dear sister-in-law. After all, we're not asking David to break into people's offices and photograph blueprints.
What are you asking?
Some very simple information. The names of the nuclear physicists employed at the plant, details of the buildings and equipment there, the number of people employed.
Well, I don't know.
At least tell David what we want. Let him make the final decision on the matter.
He'll want to help, Ruth. The least you can do is to tell him about this.
After all, Russia is our ally in this war. She's entitled to this information. Why shouldn't we see she gets it?
I don't know what to think, Julius. I don't know what I should do for the best.
Tell David of what we want. Do that, and let him decide whether he will help us or not.
There it was, the beginning. Ruth Greenglass went out to Los Alamos, the high-security settlement in the desert of New Mexico. She reported what Ethel and Julius Rosenberg had told her.
But I don't like it, David. I don't like the idea of being mixed up in it.
Oh, no, me, Ruth. The idea of it scares me.
Tell Julius you won't help him, David.
Yeah, but why is he doing it? I know he has marks of sympathy, but this is pointless and dangerous.
The Russians want to know about this bomb that's being built here. Julius says they're entitled to know as allies.
Well, I guess they're allies, all right. I suppose some big shot in Washington dictates this secrecy policy. In my way of thinking, it's not such a good thing.
Wait a minute, David. You're not going to help Julius.
Well, I can't make a decision right away, Rose. Maybe I should take a while and think it over, huh? That's what I'll do. I'll think it over.
Well, he thought it over. He argued it out and came to a decision. And he decided to give what information he could to Julius Rosenberg. They met in January 1945 in New York. Greenglass was able to supply the Rosenbergs with extensive data concerning the Los Alamos setup.
Why, this is good, David. Very good.
Better than we hoped. I'm glad you saw our side of it.
Well, I only hope what we're doing's right, Ethel.
But of course it's right. Russia will use this information to preserve peace in the world.
Well, I'm full of admiration for the fight they've put up against the Nazis. It seems incredible that our own people won't trust them.
It's foolish, muddle-headed thinking, David, but we're going to set it right. Now tell me, what are you working on in the machine shop at Los Alamos?
Well, at present we're working mostly on molds.
For what?
High explosive lenses. The lenses are something quite new in the field.
Mm-hmm. Could you give me a detailed drawing of it?
Well, I think so.
Now, David, I don't believe you quite trust me. Well, I'm going to show you that both Ethel and I trust you fully.
Well, it's not that I
now,
don't...
wait, my friend. Let me show you this drawing.
What on earth is it?
It's a sketch of a bomb. The very bomb that you're working on in New Mexico.
What? But I haven't the faintest idea what the project was at Los Alamos. None of us working there know any more than our own small construction job.
Then you'll be better informed than your comrades, David. This is the top security secret in the United States today.
And you have a complete plan of it?
The complete plan.
Yeah, but how? I was told the scientists working down there all picked men that are carefully screened by the FBI. It must have been the scientists who gave you this.
Scientists are men, David. They can be bought.
But sometimes they don't have to be. Sometimes their sympathies are our sympathies.
Yeah, but tell me this. Why is a single bomb such a highly rated secret?
Because it is like no other bomb. In the whole history of mankind, the power of this can destroy cities, perhaps even civilizations.
That's a frightening thought. If it's true, Julius.
It is true, and it is frightening. It's too big a power for any one country to possess. But we need more information about it yet, David, much more.
While you're in New York, Julius will arrange an introduction for you.
To whom?
To a woman named Anne Sidorovich. She will visit you in New Mexico to collect whatever information you can get us. We want technical details, the names of any man you think might be recruited for our work, and whatever photographs and blueprints you can manage to secure.
But isn't that dangerous? Sending a Russian to Los Alamos?
She won't be recognized as a Russian. And in any case, you won't make direct contact with her in Los Alamos.
No. For this, we need Ruth's cooperation.
Ruth? Look, I don't want Ruth brought into this.
There's nothing to fear. She'll simply meet Anne Sidorovich outside a movie theater in town. They'll take seats together and exchange purses.
In Ruth's purse will be the information you give her and nothing else. There's really very little to it.
And so the espionage continued throughout those vital months of 1945. It is an incredible fact that Julius Rosenberg possessed full details of the atomic bomb many months before it was used at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. David Greenglass went back to Los Alamos. As foreman technician of the machine shop, he was now in the position to pass on a great deal of vital information to the Rosenbergs. He gave full details and sketches of many gadgets vital to the use of the atomic bomb. But neither Greenglass nor the Rosenbergs knew their time was fast running out. There were hints of espionage and treason at Los Alamos. At the FBI, we probed those rumors.
Oh, there doesn't seem to be anything to it, Steve. We've checked the nationality and the backgrounds of every nuclear physicist working on the A-bomb project.
What about the Army personnel?
Oh, all been carefully selected. Still, we'll check them again. Can't be too careful.
We checked and double-checked. And among the personnel we investigated was Sergeant David Greenglass. His file was checked and passed. There seemed to be no foundation to the rumors. And then an event occurred to break the case wide open, to smash a spy ring and to bring a score of traitors to judgment. It happened in Ottawa on the morning of September 6, 1945. At police headquarters, a board desk sergeant watched the approach of a young man of foreign appearance.
This is police headquarters?
Yeah. What is it?
My name is Igor Gruzenko, a cipher clerk from the Russian embassy. I wish to see the commissioner of police.
Gruzenko had a strange story to tell. At first he was disbelieved. The police turned him away. The newspaper editors had laughed at the greatest scoop of the century. And then the Russian embassy sent men to bring him back. But Gruzenko resisted and called the Canadian police. From that incident, 2 spy rings were destroyed, 2 scientists of world renown were arrested and charged with treason, and an investigation began that was to take the FBI 6 years to complete, and which was to lead us to Sergeant David Greenglass, and finally to Julius and Ethel Rosenberg.
We continue for the defense.
When the Russians tried to force Igor Gruzenko to return to their embassy, they made a fatal mistake. The Canadian police were forced to intervene, and Gruzenko was given government protection while his charges were investigated. As a member of the FBI, I took part in that with Colonel Riss, Chief of Canadian Intelligence.
Welcome to Ottawa, Mr. Stevens. I'm glad to have you in on this.
Thank you, Colonel. Washington is mighty interested in this.
And I think you have good reason to be so. Igor Gruzenko worked in the cipher section of the Russian embassy. He sent messages in code for Colonel Nikolai Zatovin, the military attaché.
Yes.
The nature of those messages started to worry Gruzenko. As you know, one night he walked out and never went back. And he brought with him a file of confidential papers that are, well, dynamite is the only word to use.
What is your government planning to do?
A royal commission has been appointed to investigate the matter. But this should interest Washington, Stevens. There are scientists mixed up in this thing.
Scientists?
Well, nuclear physicists, I should say.
Nuclear... You mean physicists working on the atomic bomb?
That's exactly what I mean. From the evidence of these documents, it appears certain there are traitors at our atomic energy center in Montreal and at Los Alamos. I also believe these traitors may have already passed on to Russia the secret of the atomic bomb.
I went back to Washington to the headquarters of the FBI. There was certain proof now that information was leaking from the tight security net placed around Los Alamos. But the months passed, and we were unable to find the men who were passing those vital secrets. Yet the work was still going on. A spy courier was given instructions to go to Albuquerque in New Mexico.
These are your orders, my friend. You were to see the doctor in Los Alamos He will have certain papers for you to bring back to New York.
I understand.
Afterwards, you will go to the nearby town of Albuquerque. There is another matter for you to handle this trip.
Another matter? I know nothing of this.
It is an order from Yakovlev.
He told me nothing of it the last time we met.
It has come up since then. A woman was to have gone, but she is not available.
But I don't think this is very wise. The doctor's our key contact. Why endanger his usefulness?
These are orders. You will do as I say.
Is this man under suspicion? One I have to see?
No.
Because you understand the security precautions are tightening up. They'll want to know who I'm visiting and why.
You will be told what to say. The man's name is Greenglass. He lives at number 7 High Street, Albuquerque. You are to say to him, I come from Julius.
The name of that spy courier was Harry Gold. But it was 3 long years before we were to catch up with him, and the men he visited in New Mexico. Meanwhile, the war was over. Sergeant David Greenglass was honorably discharged from the army and returned to New York. He discussed his future with Julius Rosenberg.
Well, I'll have to look round and find myself a job, Julius.
Oh, I may be able to do something about that, David. I've been thinking of starting my own business, a machine shop here in New York. I have partners who are interested. How would you like to come into the business with us?
I'd like that.
I've also been thinking of sending you to Chicago University for experience. At the same time, you might make contacts there who could be useful to us later.
David Greenglass went into business with his brother-in-law, but he didn't accept the offer to go to university. He was no longer so happy about what had happened in Los Alamos, and he was going to be less happy soon. In December 1949, the long treason trail we had followed since the end of the war began to show signs of paying off. That month, 2 British security officers called at Harwell, the center of British atomic research. They arrested a top scientist and charged him with espionage. The news was important to us at FBI headquarters.
Well, here's the dossier of British security of Senator Stevens. Dr. Klaus Fuchs, head of the Theoretical Physics Division at Harwell. Worked on the atomic bomb at Los Alamos, and also did preliminary work on the hydrogen bomb.
Dr. Fuchs?
Mm-hmm.
No wonder the information was getting out. First Nunn May, now this guy.
This may be the break we want. We've had a spy courier under suspicion for some time, and there's proof he contacted the doctor while he was in New Mexico. I want him identified.
How, Chief?
British security have given us permission to interview the doctor. Stevens, you're going to England.
I went to England to interview the British traitor in his cell at Stafford Jail. I took with me hundreds of photographs of men we suspected of being connected with the Soviet spy ring, and in particular, one man who had made many trips to New Mexico during the war. Dr. Fuchs picked him out and identified him as a chemical engineer named Harry Gold.
Well, the hunch paid off. We've suspected Harry Gold for a long time.
Are you going to pick him up, Chief?
Mm-hmm, when we're ready. I've got 2 men assigned to following him night and day, and when we're ready, we'll bring him in. But I'm not so interested in him now. It's the others I want.
Yeah, Harry Gold was only a courier. He just carried the information.
And we want the people who gave it and the ones who received it. Get the Los Alamos security file. Maybe that'll show us if Gold visited anyone else in New Mexico.
Why, David.
Julius, let me in quickly.
What is it? What are you doing here at this hour?
Julius, I had to come. Haven't you heard about the doctor being arrested?
Yes, I've heard. For heaven's sake, keep your voice down. You'll wake Ethel.
I am awake, Julius. What is it, David? What's wrong?
Came over the news last night. 2 FBI men went to see the doctor at Stafford Jail.
What? Oh, but Klaus won't talk.
Of course not.
He did talk. The broadcast said so.
What? Klaus's contact was Harry Gold. Did the broadcast mention his name?
No, not his name. But the FBI expects arrest shortly. That's what it said. It may be an attempt to bluff. We mustn't lose our heads over this. That's all right for you, Julius. But Gold came to see me when I was at Albuquerque. The security police have got a record of that.
It could be dangerous. There's only one thing to be done.
What?
You'll have to go away, David.
Away where?
Out of the country. Julius can arrange it.
Of course. But I can't do that. You know Ruth's expecting a baby. I just can't leave her at a time like this. You'll have to do what is safest, David. Look, maybe Gold hasn't been arrested yet. Wouldn't it be better to hide him somewhere till we get him out of the country? He's a danger.
What do you think, Julius?
I'll have to consider that. Go home, David, and see me later in the day. I'll let you know then what's to be done.
Later that day, the newsboys were shouting that Harry Gold had been arrested. They met again. 2 badly frightened men and a woman.
It's too late to do anything about Harry Gold now. David, you'll have to go, and fast. You're to take Ruth and go to Mexico. Tourist cards are easy to obtain for holiday purposes. That's all you need to get across the border.
Julius and I are staying here for the moment. But if it looks dangerous, then we'll follow you.
David Greenglass went home to pack. He was still packing when we arrived to pick him up.
Yeah?
Mr. Greenglass?
What do you want? Please, I'm busy. Come back some other time, huh?
No, Mr. Greenglass. Don't try shutting the door on us. It wouldn't help you.
What do you want?
We're from the FBI. I guess you know what we want. We took him into custody and showed him evidence that linked him indisputably with spy courier Harry Gold. Greenglass was intelligent enough to realize his position was hopeless. He talked, and kept on talking. And at the end of his testimony, we had all the evidence we needed to arrest Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. They were brought to trial in March 1951, and the evidence exposed an almost incredible tangle of international intrigue. David Greenglass was the chief witness for the prosecution.
You say that Julius and Ethel Rosenberg asked you for details of the Los Alamos plant?
I do say that. All the information I gathered at Los Alamos was sent to them, and later given to Soviet Russia.
Order!
In the face of such evidence, the jury were finally convinced beyond doubt that the Rosenbergs were guilty of espionage. It remained only for the judge to sentence them.
Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, you have been found guilty of espionage. Plain, deliberate, contemplated murder is dwarfed in magnitude by comparison with the crime you have committed. I believe your conduct in putting into the hands of the Russians the A-bomb years before the time our best scientists predicted they would have the bomb has already caused the aggression in Korea, with the resulting casualties. Who knows but what millions more innocent people may pay the price for your treason? Indeed, by your betrayal, you undoubtedly have altered the course of history. The maximum penalty for your crime is death, and that is the sentence of this court upon you both.
The defense attorney, Emmanuel Block, used every legal device to gain time for his clients. 4 appeals to the United States Supreme Court were denied. Clemency motions were refused by President Eisenhower. The White House was picketed. Demonstrations and parades were held in sympathy for the Rosenbergs. Throughout the world, people took sides in this most debated legal case for many years. But the last appeal was denied, the last clemency motion dismissed, and in June 1953, the Rosenbergs were executed in Sing Sing prison. For us at the FBI, it was the end of a long trail that had lasted nearly 9 years.
the defense. Classic cases from the world's courtrooms. True stories of famous trials. The Rosenberg case was written by Peter Yeldham and starred Charles Tingwell as the FBI agent. This was a Grace Gibson production, directed by Lawrence H. Cecil.
Justice. In the courtrooms of the world where young and old, rich and poor stand in equal judgment.
I never did like foreigners. You can't trust them, I say.
Tonight, The Foreigner. The story of a Frenchman being tried for murder in an English court of law. The murder of the wealthy financier Edward Ferrier towards the end of last century caused a sensation in English society. An elderly widower, he lived alone in a rather small house with a domestic staff of only 3. His body was discovered one morning by the housemaid and his valet, and the police were immediately called in. Some days later, the valet, Jules Leclerc, a Frenchman, was arrested and charged with the murder of his employer. When he was brought to trial in June of 1899, the Old Bailey Criminal Court was crowded. After the jury had been duly sworn, counsel for the prosecution called his first witness.
Your name is Mary Webber, and at the time of the murder you were employed as a housemaid at the Ferrier residence?
Yes, sir. There were 3 of us. The cook, me, and him.
You mean the accused?
Yes, sir.
Would you please tell the court what happened on the night before the murder?
Well, the master dined alone that night.
Yes.
And after dinner he went upstairs to his study to write letters.
I see. And then?
Nothing, sir. I went to bed. I always go to bed early.
Your bedroom is just above that of your late master's?
Yes, sir. I sleep with the cook.
You heard nothing during the night?
No, sir, not a thing.
What happened next morning?
I went into the master's study. It wasn't a mess. You've got no idea how untidy it was.
Things had been disturbed?
Yes, sir. Drawers were open and papers were scattered everywhere.
What did you do next?
I went downstairs to do my own work.
Yes?
When I opened the shutters, I got a surprise.
The downstairs was also disturbed?
Yes, sir. All the silverware had been moved and some of it was missing.
You raised the alarm?
Well, I didn't know what to do. After all, I was only the housemaid. I went up and called cook and him.
You mean the accused, the late Mr. Ferrier's valet?
Yes, sir. Monsieur Leclerc came downstairs with me.
What did he say when he saw the disorder?
He said, someone has been robbing us, in the funny way he speaks.
And what did you say?
I said, we better call the master.
He agreed at once?
Of course. It would have been funny if he hadn't seen us out.
Please confine your remarks to answering questions.
Yes, sir, but... And I've got my own ideas as to what happened.
No doubt, but...
Anyway, I never did like foreigners. You can't trust them, I say.
You went to Mr. Ferrier's room and knocked on the door?
Yes, sir, if you call it a knock. Monsieur gave a tap and then entered without waiting for a reply.
The accused entered the room first?
Of course, sir. After all, I'm not used to entering a man's bedroom whilst he's in bed.
I understand. Please tell the court what happened then.
Well, sir, Monsieur Leclerc went over to open the windows and unlatched the shutters.
When he went to the windows, he had to pass the bed?
Of course, sir.
He passed quite close?
He touched it, he did.
You followed just behind him?
Yes, sir.
What happened then?
When I saw the blood on the sheet, I screamed.
One moment, please. You saw the blood on the sheet?
Yes, sir.
Had the shutters been opened?
No, sir.
The accused entered the bedroom first, passed close to the bed, and did not see the blood?
Yes, sir.
And yet, in the same light, before the shutters had been opened, the first thing you saw was the blood on the sheet.
Well, you couldn't miss it, sir.
Exactly. It would appear as though the accused knew the blood was there. Now, please tell the court what happened after you saw the blood.
Well, I screamed, like I said, rushed downstairs and out into the street.
You attracted the neighbours' attention?
Yes, sir. They called the police and the doctor. I was in such a dither I didn't know what I was doing.
When you returned to the house, where was the accused?
He was sitting in the hall writing a letter.
Did he speak to you?
I spoke to him. I'm afraid I lost my temper. I don't use strong language as a rule. I don't believe in it. I always
You used strong language?
Yes, sir. I'm real ashamed of myself now.
Will you please tell the court what you said to the accused?
Must I?
I'm afraid so. The court realizes you were under a great mental stress and will make due allowance for your language.
Very well. I said to him, "What the devil are you sitting there for? Why don't you run out and get a flaming doctor?" Oh, you will make an allowance, won't you, sir? I'm a respectable woman and don't over strong language. I was upset at the time.
I'm sure the court will make allowance for the circumstances, Miss Webber. What did the accused say to you?
He said he was writing to Mr. Ferrier's son to tell him about the accident. He lived only 2 blocks away.
Thank you, Miss Webber. You have been most helpful.
Miss Webber, you say you are a respectable woman.
Indeed I am, sir.
Nevertheless, you so far forgot yourself as to use strong language.
I was excited.
Exactly, Miss Webber. You admit you were excited?
Yes, sir.
And so your evidence is open to grave doubt?
What do you mean?
I mean that on the morning in question, you were in a dither, running around in circles. You didn't know what you were saying or doing.
Well,
what you have just told the court is not what happened, but what you think may have happened after you've had time to calm down and collect your thoughts.
I suppose so, but...
And in the process of recollecting, as it were, you have been greatly assisted by the police.
They've been most helpful.
No doubt. I put it to you, Miss Webber, that you are open to suggestion. That you remember what the police want you to remember.
Nonsense.
You admitted you were excited and didn't know what you were doing.
I didn't say that.
You also said you didn't like foreigners.
And I don't. You can't trust him.
I put it to you, you disliked the defendant because he was a foreigner, and you were quite content, in fact eager, to remember only what would be harmful to him.
No, sir.
You were helped in your recollecting by the police. I put it to you that you are just a busybody, trying to take the centre of the stage.
No, sir. That's an awful thing to say.
Then why did you go to the study first?
To dust it.
Not to pry into the papers your late master left there.
Of course not.
But you did read some of the papers scattered around.
Well, I did glance at some of them.
I would consider that quite an understatement, Miss Webber. You were too busy prying into other people's affairs to give the alarm.
No, sir. When I saw all the drawers open, I thought the master might be looking for something, and I didn't want to disturb anything. I knew he'd gone to his study the night before to write letters.
You knew? He told you?
No, sir, but we all knew that he used to do that.
He didn't tell you?
No, we knew, that's all.
You mean you guessed? It appears to me that a considerable portion of your testimony is just guesswork.
No, sir.
You say you went to bed early.
Yes, sir, I always do.
Why?
Well, what else is there to do?
What else? Haven't you heard of men?
What do you mean?
You have no boyfriend?
No.
You're in your 30s?
I'm 27.
27?
Well, 29 then.
You would do well to remember that you are on oath, Miss Webber. You say you're 29. In short, you are a frustrated spinster with very little chance of being married.
What's that got to do with the master's death?
Just this. You are trying to find an outlet for your frustrated emotions. You are suddenly pushed into the limelight and you find yourself a key witness. You're important. For the very first time in your life, you have the opportunity to take the center of the stage, and you seize it with both hands.
How can you be so cruel?
You are excitable and open to suggestion, and you detest the accused. Your evidence is just a travesty, mere guesswork, and wishful thinking. That is all. You may step down.
Mary Webber was a pathetic figure as she left the witness box, sobbing quietly. A simple woman, she had only done her duty, but the defense counsel realized that her testimony, that the accused had passed the bed of his late master without appearing to notice the blood on the sheet, could be very damaging. He had tried with some success to make her appear in an unfavorable light. Her place in the stand was taken by Sergeant Gribble of the London City Police, who was duly sworn.
Now, Sergeant, you were in charge of investigations into the death of the late Mr. Ferrier.
Aye, sir.
When were you first called into the case?
On the morning of the murder.
Please tell the court what happened when you arrived at the house.
Oh, the place was in an uproar. The house was crowded and people were milling around. I sent them packing and told the servants to wait in the kitchen.
You then went up to the deceased's bedroom?
Aye, sir. The door had been locked by the cook. She was a sensible woman and had taken charge of affairs.
The doctor hadn't arrived?
He got there just after me. We entered the room together.
Nothing had been touched?
No, sir.
Mr. Ferrier was dead?
Aye, sir. His throat had been cut. The gash was very deep.
Death had been instantaneous?
So the doctor said.
Now, Sergeant, could it have been suicide?
No, definitely not. It was murder.
Why are you so sure?
Because the deceased's face and hands were covered by the sheet. If death had been instantaneous, as the doctor stated, he would not have had time to pull the sheet over his head.
Therefore, it must have been murder?
Aye, sir.
What did you do then?
I examined the house carefully to ascertain if it could have been an outside job.
And what did you find?
That it must have been an inside job. No one had broken in.
Did you discover anything further?
Aye, sir. The gas light in the bedroom had been turned off.
Yes?
A candle was beside the bed. It had been burnt down to the socket of the candlestick. Mr. Ferrier's spectacles and a book were also beside the bed.
You mean Mr. Ferrier had been reading in bed?
Oh, it would appear so, but I'm informed that he never read in bed. And,
Yes?
Well, if he'd broken this rule, why had he turned out the gas light?
How do you account for the candle burning so low?
Oh, it had been used by the murderer as he moved around the house, parcelling up the silver.
You mean he used the candle and then left the book and spectacles beside the bed to mislead the police into believing it was an outside job?
Aye, sir. After using the candle, he must have suddenly realised that it had been known that a new candle had been placed out for use by the deceased, and someone would wonder why so much of it had been used.
I see. The fact that it was an inside job narrowed the suspects down to the 3 servants.
That is so. The accused, the cook, and the housemaid.
What made you suspect the accused?
Well, the other 2 servants were respectable women of known good character.
Whereas the accused was a foreigner about whom little was known.
Aye, sir. Besides, it's well known that when a foreigner robs, he generally murders.
I object! That is an outrageous statement!
The court was in an uproar as counsel for the defence objected loudly, and it was some time before the judge could restore order. The prosecution chided the sergeant mildly.
Please confine your remarks to the case before the court, Sergeant.
Aye, sir.
Was there anything else which made you suspect the accused?
He was jealous of Mr. Ferrier's wealth. He was often heard to say that if he had his employer's money, he'd not stay long in London.
He would return to France?
So he said.
Now, Sergeant, you subsequently recovered some of the missing money and jewels.
Aye, we searched the house and found that the floor skirting in the pantry had recently been removed.
What happened then?
Oh, I pulled it away. And behind one section we found 5 rings belonging to the deceased. Behind another section we found some gold coins and a £10 note.
Did you discover anything else?
Aye, we did. Behind a water pipe in the pantry we found a locket which had been missing for some weeks. It had great sentimental value for Mr. Ferrier. I understand he'd been greatly upset when it was first missed.
Thank you, Sergeant. That is all.
Now, Sergeant, much has been made of the fact that my client is a foreigner.
I don't understand.
You have intimated that he was suspected because he was a foreigner.
Oh, indeed, no, sir. I merely said that the backgrounds of the other 2 servants were known. They were born and raised in London.
Whereas my client was born in Paris?
Aye, sir. Because of that, we had no means of checking on his antecedents.
Because a man is a Frenchman, he is not necessarily a scoundrel.
Of course not.
You mentioned that my client was envious of the deceased's wealth.
Well, he was heard to say he wished he had his money.
Naturally. So do I. Incidentally, though you may not admit it, so do you.
Why, I suppose so.
You'd be unnatural if you didn't. You also mentioned that the accused had often said he would return to Paris if he had the money.
So he did, sir.
You're of Scottish descent, Sergeant?
Aye, I am, sir.
Haven't you any desire to return to Scotland?
Of course.
And my client hankers to return to France. It's only natural. I appeal to this court, to the gentlemen of the jury, to look upon my client not as a foreigner, but as a human being on trial for his life. Now, Sergeant, you say no one could have entered the house that night.
Well, that's right, sir. There's an impassable wall on one side, while the other side had recently been whitewashed. Well, if anyone had climbed it, it would have been marked.
What about the windows?
Oh, there were no jimmy marks, and the shutters were locked.
You mean there were when you checked them the following morning?
Aye, sir.
One of them could have been left unlocked. The murderer could have locked it after entering, and then let himself out by the front door. You'll agree that that is possible?
Well, it's possible, but not probable.
The murderer entered the bedroom, expecting to find the deceased asleep. When he was seen by Mr. Ferrier, who was awake reading, he killed him.
Mr. Ferrier was not in the habit of reading in bed.
Habits are made to be broken, Sergeant. Now, you mentioned that the gaslight had been turned out.
Aye, sir.
Much has been made of this point. There could be two very simple explanations.
Yes, sir.
Firstly, Mr. Ferrier could have turned it out and read by candlelight, so that he would not have to get out of bed when he had finished reading.
I suppose so.
Secondly, he could have finished reading. You yourself have testified that his spectacles and book were beside the bed.
The candle would still be alight.
He could have got out of bed, turned out the gaslight, and then returned to bed. He was just settling down for the night and about to blow out the candle when the murderer entered. You'll admit that that is possible.
Well, I suppose so.
You will also admit that the murder could have been done by an outsider?
No, sir. It doesn't make sense.
In what way?
We found a locket behind a water pipe in the pantry. It had been missing for some weeks.
There is nothing to say that the theft of the locket is connected in any way with the murder.
The other stuff was also hidden in the pantry.
Life is full of coincidences, Sergeant.
It still doesn't make sense. Why did he hide the stuff at all? Why not take it away with him?
Because he panicked. He had committed murder. He didn't want to be found with the rings on him.
Maybe. But he wouldn't have hidden the gold coins and the £10 notes. They couldn't have been identified.
You are assuming that you're dealing with a normal man. A murderer is not rational. And who can tell what he will do?
By the time the defence had finished with Sergeant Gribble, the prosecution's hitherto seemingly complete case had started to crumble. All the evidence so far had been purely circumstantial, but by chance, on the day the trial opened, a woman attracted by the publicity had called on the police and offered certain information. She was now called as a witness.
Your name is Madame Perron?
Yes, sir.
You are French?
No, sir. I am English. My husband is French.
He runs the Calais Hotel in Lion Street?
Yes.
About 4 years ago, the accused worked for you as a waiter?
Yes. He called himself Charles then.
How long did he work for you?
About 5 weeks.
He then left?
Yes, sir.
When did you next see him?
About a week before the death of Mr. Ferrier. He called at our hotel.
It was purely a social visit?
Yes.
When was the next occasion you saw him?
On the night of the murder. He brought me a paper parcel and asked me to mind it for him.
You agreed?
Yes. I locked the parcel in our safe.
You didn't see him again before he was arrested?
No. I read in the newspapers about the arrest of Jules Leclerc for murder, but I didn't connect him with the man we knew as Charles until just before this trial began.
What happened then?
I remembered the parcel. I sent for my solicitor and a friend named Mr. Cookson.
And you opened the parcel in their presence?
Yes, sir.
What did it contain?
Silverware, mainly knives, spoons and forks. My solicitor took them to the police station.
Where they were identified as belonging to the late Mr. Ferrier?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madame Perron. That is all.
Now, Madame Perron, you say that this mysterious stranger appeared out of nowhere after an absence of 4 years.
I don't understand.
I mean, you may be making a mistake in identifying the accused with this mysterious Charles.
I am not mistaken.
You say you opened the parcel in the presence of your solicitor and of Mr. Cookson?
Yes.
Who is this mysterious Mr. Cookson?
A friend. He was present when the accused handed me the parcel for safekeeping.
The parcel was sealed?
No.
Then it could have been opened by someone between the time it was lodged and the time it was opened in the presence of your solicitor and Mr. Cookson.
It was not.
But it could have been.
I kept it in the safe.
You were not the only person who had access to the safe?
No.
Thank you, Madame Perron. We submit that you have confused the mysterious Charles with my client. There is no evidence that the accused lodged this parcel with you for safekeeping. Your Honor, all the evidence so far produced has been purely circumstantial. In order to completely refute this charge, I now propose to place my client in the witness stand.
Counsel's announcement caused a stir in court. Leclerc, a dandified little Frenchman in his early 30s, then entered the box and was duly sworn.
Now, Leclerc, you have heard the evidence of the previous witnesses.
Oui, monsieur.
Madame Perron has testified that you brought her a parcel for safekeeping on the night of the murder.
She is mistaken.
You know Madame Perron?
I've never met her before in my life.
Did you leave the house on the night in question?
No, monsieur. I went to bed early and I did not leave my room until called by Mademoiselle Weber.
You were on friendly terms with Miss Weber?
Oh, no. We quarreled frequently.
Why?
Well, monsieur, she is a woman, and when I wouldn't... you are a man of the world, monsieur, you understand.
You mean she tried to be more than friendly?
Oui, monsieur.
Now, Leclerc, when your master was murdered, you expected to lose your job.
But of course, monsieur.
Therefore, you would not be likely to hide rings and money in a house which would be closed.
Well, of course not. I expected to leave Monsieur Ferrier's residence the next day.
You would have smuggled the rings out of the house.
Oui. I would have put them in the parcel with the silver. You understand, monsieur, a man does not rob and then walk out on his booty.
After further questioning, the defense counsel completed his cross-examination of the accused, and the prosecution took over.
Leclerc, you say that Miss Weber was annoyed at you because you refused her advances.
Ah, oui.
You have the reputation of being a philanderer. I put it to you that the boot was on the other foot, that she refused you and you became angry.
No, you are mistaken.
I also put it to you that you lodged the bulky silver, which was difficult to hide, with Madame Perron, and hid the small rings and coins in the house.
Well, why should I do that? I was to leave the house the next day.
Oh, no, Leclerc. You are not to leave, not permanently anyway. That is why you were writing to the late Mr. Ferrier's son when Miss Weber returned to the house.
What do you mean?
I mean that your master had been in bad health. The son had promised to keep all the servants on, as he intended to move over to the family residence on his father's death.
Oh, you are mistaken.
Mr. Ferrier will be produced as a witness later.
I know nothing about it.
Do you still say you are not the man who left the parcel with Madame Perron for safekeeping?
Oui, monsieur.
This parcel in question was wrapped in a very distinctive kind of brown paper. It is special, thin type, used by a well-known firm of art dealers.
Oui, monsieur.
A witness will be produced who will testify that a print was delivered to Mr. Ferrier only the day before his death, and it was wrapped in this particular type of paper.
But, monsieur, this firm, it has very many customers, and pieces of this paper must be strewn all over the country.
No doubt. But no paper of this type was found at the Ferrier residence. What became of the piece of paper, Leclerc?
After further cross-examination, the discomfited Leclerc left the witness stand. Several more witnesses were called, and then the two counsels gave their closing addresses to the jury. In the course of his address, the defense counsel said passionately,
"My client is French, and therefore a foreigner. I appeal to you, gentlemen of the jury, to give him a fair trial, foreigner though he be. I submit that not my client, but British justice is on trial today."
The judge then summed up to the jury, which retired to consider its verdict. In a moment, the result of this trial and the jury's verdict. The jury did not take long to arrive at a verdict of guilty, and the valet Jules Leclerc was sentenced to death. The case aroused considerable attention at the time and caused a heated newspaper controversy as to whether Leclerc was adjudged guilty because he had committed murder or because he was a foreigner. After some degree of sanity had been restored, it was generally agreed that he had indeed been guilty, a conclusion with which most sane people would agree. Justice in the courtrooms of the world, taken from actual court files. The Foreigner was written by E.J. Hook and is a Grace Gibson radio production directed by Lawrence H. Cecil.
Melbourne is nearing the Olympic Games, and today is in the world spotlight, because here in this southern Australian city, sportsmen from the four corners of the earth will meet under the Olympic banner in November. Melbourne will become the world's capital of sport, the 11th city of modern times to stage the immortal Olympics. Melbourne is a city of wide streets and handsome buildings, the home of 1,500,000 people. Look along Elizabeth Street and you see the clock tower of the Flinders Street Railway Station, our busiest city terminal. Within a mile of the town hall, in a parkland setting, is the Melbourne Cricket Ground, main stadium for the Olympic Games. On November 22nd, a crowd of 110,000 will see the Duke of Edinburgh open the Games. And on this arena will be a record lineup of more than 70 teams. This new stand for 40,000 people has been built for the Games. Here is an Australian rules football match at the stadium. The red-roofed building behind the scoreboard and in front of Government House is the new Olympic swimming stadium. The main Olympic sites, grouped close together with the main stadium at the rear and Olympic Park, the new multi-purpose sports centre, in the foreground. Swimming, diving, soccer, cycling and hockey will be staged at Olympic Park, specially built for the Games. The Olympic Swimming and Diving Stadium. Designed by a group of young Melbourne architects and a construction engineer, the pool is completely enclosed. The sloping sides are supported by the roof, and the whole structure is anchored by steel cables. Glassed at both ends, the building has caught the imagination of architects all over the world. A few yards away on the main training tracks, Australian athletes are preparing for the Games. Australian javelin champion Bob Grant receives advice from famous Austrian coach Franz Stampfel. Here, a group of sprinters jog through their warming-up exercises. This is Olympic Village, and Melbourne is proud of it. Smart and colourful, the village has won praise from every international visitor. The village has over 840 houses and flats, and they'll accommodate up to 6,000 athletes and officials, both men and women. The athletes will live two to a room. After the Games, these fine brick flats, like the rest of the village, will become homes for Melbourne people. All meals will be served to the athletes at Olympic Village in huge temporary dining halls, each capable of serving 300 meals at once. In attractive buildings, chefs from many lands will serve competitors the type of food they're accustomed to at home. The village is now humming with activity as it nears completion. But Melbourne intends to welcome thousands of visitors besides the competitors. Many will be accommodated in private homes. All offers of accommodation or hospitality are noted at the Melbourne Town Hall. Every pin on the map represents an offer of accommodation for an Olympic visitor. Different colored pins represent different racial, religious, or other preferences. Every host and every Olympic visitor will be matched for similar tastes. Melbourne citizens will be hosts to 15,000 Olympic visitors. During the Games, it will be Olympics on the water, too. Here, Olympic-type yachts train on Port Phillip Bay, site of Games yachting. Supporting Melbourne as Olympic host city will be nearby Ballarat. It will stage rowing and canoeing on Lake Wendouree. Here, Victoria and New South Wales battle for Olympic selection in the annual classic, the King's Cup. The winners are Victoria. The winning crew will train on Melbourne's Yarra River. Melbourne, the youngest city ever to present the Games, is ready to receive the sportsmen of the world.